Before we dive into today's episode, I'm super stoked to announce our show's first sponsor, Livesn Designs. That's Livsn. Livesn is an outdoor apparel company built on the idea of owning less and living more. Their gear is designed to last, functional, versatile, and made responsibly. They create clothing that you actually want to live in, season after season. Plus, they stand behind their work with a lifetime warranty program and a mission to minimize the impact on people and our planet. Livesn has made a commitment, not just to its customers, not just to its sustainability, but also to you, the climbing majority. They've taken a leap of faith in sponsoring this show and become the first partner to stand beside this growing community. While this will always be a passion-first project for me, partners like this give me the time and resources to grow the show into something even bigger. So every time you choose to support Livesn, you're also supporting this podcast. Be sure to head over to livesn.com. That's Livsn.com to learn more about our sponsor and to make your first purchase towards supporting this community. Also, Livesn has extended an exclusive discount just for you. Use code TCM15 for 15% off your next Livesn order. That's TCM15 for 15% off at checkout. All right, let's get into today's episode.
We have had no real like publicity at all. Just kind of nice.
About this specifically, or just in general?
In general.
In general.
Yeah. About this neither.
This summer since the Goliath, I guess we did the.
Is he frozen?
Oh yeah. Can you see and hear us all right? Because
I can see and hear you. You're a bit fuzzy. I think it might just be the internet connection.
Go. You're back. Okay. Cool.
Okay, sweet. You guys are on Starlink, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably just trying to pick up satellites and stuff.
Yeah. And we're in a canyon. It's pretty open here, but it's not perfect. So.
Got it. You were saying though?
Oh, there was the climbing magazine article.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was about it. I think it's just kind of a hard objective to really like digest. It's kind of hard to understand how big it really is. I think the same thing happened when Vitaliy did it. He there was a little buzz. I mean, I guess he had like a lot more, but I don't think people really I ask people all the time. Nobody knows what the Goliath is still. Like nobody's heard of it. I think it's just too big to really comprehend what you're actually even talking about, unless you've like been out there and done some of the sections and stuff. So
now I would imagine that'd be the same mentality you guys kind of had going into it in the first place.
What's that?
Just not even knowing what you guys were getting into in a way.
Oh yeah, that was a huge part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and so like, you had gotten so much. I mean, I guess Vitaliy had done this before. It didn't seem like he had much to really offer you guys in terms of beta. Like, what exactly did you pull from him? And like, how much of it was him just kind of like, you sure you want to do that? Good luck kind of vibe.
I mean, we sat down with him for basically a full afternoon. We had like a physical map, and we had CalTopo pulled up on a phone and another map on a computer, and we were kind of cross-referencing all three of these, and he was trying to talk us through each day and kind of what we could roughly expect, but it just doesn't really translate to like reality much when you're talking about it. It's kind of abstract, and you're like, yeah, you go up and over this tower, and you try to go left around this, and like look for this 5/8 chimney on the backside of this face. That's going to be your down climb and stuff. And it's like, you hear that and you're like, yeah, it's fine. But when you're out there, it was just so different. It would be impossible to really describe it without having experience out there. I mean, I've even done a couple of the sections before, but I feel like grossly unaware of what we were actually doing until we were in it. So
yeah, that type of beta, like, oh yeah, I think I down climbed this summit from a 5/8 chimney, but then when you're on your 10th summit of the day and you're looking down, there's 5 different ways you can go. We probably didn't even end up going the same way as him, that often, just because of the nature of route finding and that type of alpine terrain. But I think the big benefit from speaking with Vitaliy and getting beta was not like, this is the crack that you climb on this mountain, but more just the overall kind of psychological benefit of saying like, okay, we know Vitaliy did this, so hopefully we can do this. And then the first couple of days we did almost exactly the same mileage that he did. So kind of more like setting expectations was like more important to use his information than like actual route finding or how do you climb each peak. Because at the end of the day, we just climbed one mountain, we looked down, we saw another mountain, and we climbed the next one. As far as like beta that you normally get for a route. So it was almost more like a week, like a really zoomed out psychological benefit that we had from speaking with him.
Like
Yeah,
an over high level understanding of exactly kind of what the big picture was that you guys were getting into.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just understanding that these are the days that he did, and I know Vitaliy very well, and I think I know his capabilities pretty well. So it was just saying that it is possible to go from here to here today. It is possible to go from here to here today, and whether we choose the same routes or we don't struggle with route finding or whatever, it was just good to have a rough template for like, this is generally our timeline that we should be on, and that was super helpful, because if he hadn't done it or told us that, I wouldn't have set a lot of those goals, because they would have seemed way too audacious to go from, this mountain to this mountain in a day. If that hadn't already been done by Vitaliy, I would be like, that's not possible. But he did it, so we knew that we could do it. So that was kind of our template for our timeline overall on the Goliath.
Now,
Yeah.
after having done it in the first place, I would imagine like understanding what Vitaliy actually did was even more mind blowing after the fact.
Yeah. I mean, comparing our experience to what his experience must have been like I'm still just shocked. Like,
Yeah.
wow, him going up there, having no idea what it was going to be like day after day, just waking up and saying, well, I'm going to climb as far as I can. As opposed to us waking up and saying, well, Vitaliy made it this far, so we probably can too. I mean, that is just a huge difference.
Yeah, totally different.
I mean,
experience.
he was like landing on Mars. We were more like going to the moon. Like, we kind of know people have been there. It's still really adventurous, but like we know it's possible.
Yeah.
Whereas he was like way out there.
Yeah, for sure. That's wild. So I'm curious, like, just to circle back a little bit, you guys did the quad last year. You guys were on the show. What about what about you two has you chasing objectives like this and pushing the bar further instead of like resting on like your past successes? Like, I feel like that's a personality trait. So like, have you guys thought about that? Like, you guys easily could have just been like, man, the quad was groundbreaking. I'm just going to chill and have fun and push grades, or kind of just become, content with what the achievement that you guys had.
Well, that's what we're doing. There's a bunch of bolts right here. We're sport climbing this afternoon.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've even talked about that. I mean, we are having fun. This is fun for us,
I don't mean it's not fun, but you know what I mean? Like, you did the quad and now it's like the next big thing, the Goliath Traverse. Like, I don't think a lot of people would have immediately gone and done something like that within the like calendar year. Like, is there something about you two in terms of like how you're choosing these objectives and like why you're pushing the bar like that?
Well, one thing that's interesting is we decided to do the Goliath like with certainty as we were walking down from Half Dome after the quad. We had kind of thrown the idea around a bit. Like, I was interested. Tanner was super psyched. He had asked me a couple times. I'm like, yeah, maybe. But then, like, literally as we were walking down from the quad, he was like, I don't know. I think we should like pick a big objective for next year. Do you want to just go all in on the Goliath? And I'm like 100%. Like, I'm super psyched. And
which is sweet.
Yeah.
I was bugging him about it for like the last year, and I think we both like being really like super engrossed in these big objectives, and the feeling that you get when you're successful is just such an overwhelming sense of like community and accomplishment and stuff, when everybody gets to get together and put a big community effort behind something like this. And I said it last time, it feels selfish that we get to be the ones to like do the actual climbing and get to experience that, but I just think we both gravitate toward the more the super intense, like comprehensive experiences that really require everything. And it's a really addicting feeling to be a part of like a high functioning team like that. It's just an incredible dynamic when you are a part of a group of people that are all on the same page, and they all are willing to sacrifice for like something bigger like this, a big objective. And yeah, I don't know. It's not ever been a discussion about like, do we want to take time off? It's always just like, okay, what's next? And like, we're picking goals that are fun for us, so it doesn't feel like work. It feels like it's like an opportunity. It's like we're like picking a gift from like a toy store, like which one you want, and we get to like pick one and then kind of go all in on it for a while and enjoy the experience.
yeah, and also like, I mean, we did the quad 9 months ago, and this is the biggest thing we've done since then. So it's not like we're
It's been a
taking
while.
2 weeks off. Like, we took some time off. We did go sport climbing. We did do some other stuff. We went on an international trip, and then like we came back home and got this done. So, it's been a process.
Yeah. I think that's the word, right? It's process. I think I like how Tanner framed that. It's like you guys are engrossed in the process of these objectives rather than chasing the result of an objective in a way. And I think that's beautifully said. Yeah.
Yeah, the process is 99% of it, right? This process started back in, I mean, for me back in December, January, when I started kind of focusing training specifically on this. And we've been talking that like we're making a movie that La Sportiva and Coros has graciously funded. We're super excited to share, but we've been in this process between that and the actual training and the ramp up and the planning and logistics and everything for 6 or 7 months now. And that's fun. It's really fun to have like a common shared goal that people can rally around. It's just like this flagpole where we all meet and we are kind of all we're all combining all of our efforts and free time and stuff toward this one thing, and it creates a stronger community. And it's just a cool shared experience to share with friends and family and stuff.
Yeah, I think part of my like not being as psyched on the Goliath before this year was that I've always had such big goals in the valley. So it's possible that like doing the triple and the quad, I'm like, okay, this was such a big accomplishment in Yosemite that I'm kind of okay, looking maybe to go back to scrambling in the mountains a bit. As opposed to if it's like season after season, I was like so psyched to always get back to Yosemite. So spending a summer just like scrambling sounded not as appealing. Since I wanted to like show up in Yosemite ready to crush, but this, after the quad, it was kind of like, okay, like I've spent so much time in Yosemite now. If I don't have as big of a year in the valley, I'm kind of okay with that. So
yeah, we front loaded a whole season of climbing during the quad, so we're good to take one a little bit.
If we're not doing as many walls this year, then that's fine.
We did enough last year for both.
Yeah, I'd say you both had quite a Yosemite season and just an alpine season in general, just outside of this objective of the Goliath, which has been pretty impressive to watch.
Cool.
You said the community aspect of it. Which objective had more of a community element in terms of support? Was it the quad or the Goliath?
I think the quad. I mean, that's it, but that's specifically because the quad was a super supported event where we heavily relied on support between every wall, and we had breakfast waiting for us, and we had people meet us on walls, and we had people drive us from Watkins to the valley and stuff like that. Our goal for the Goliath was self-supported, which we mostly maintained. But we intentionally made the decision that we wanted, because Vitaliy did it alpine style, he had no caches, nothing. We wanted to at least do it self-supported, because I feel like as soon as you accept the first like meal en route or whatever, you might as well have a helicopter dropping off your camp every single night and people carrying your bag and feeding you bars. Like there's no difference on paper between one snack bar and you being fully supported by an entire crew. So we wanted to try to stay self-supported in the sense that we didn't want to take too big of a step back in style from how Vitaliy did it. So we didn't want to do it alpine style. We knew that, and we talked to him about it. He said he chose that because he wanted to make it as hard as he physically could. He went out of his way to try to see how hard he could make it. We weren't interested in that specifically, so we decided to at least break our food up into 2 sections. So we dropped a single cache halfway, and that was an attempt, I guess, to pay homage to Vitaliy at least a little bit and not go completely supported by a whole race crew. So, and it would be really hard to do supported anyway. You would have to you would need to have like several teams of really fit mountain athletes to even make it to any of the saddles or passes that we were sleeping at. Like it would be an enormous objective just for our crew to like try to get us food and water each night if that's what we chose to do. So
we could have recruited and paid a whole team of porters, to stash every night and just done it with a running vest on. But we kind of wanted a little bit more of a mountain adventure than that, where we were carrying our camp with us and having the flexibility to kind of do whatever felt right each day.
Yeah. No, I mean, looking at the two, because basically there's like 2 main sections that you guys are linking, right? It's the full Monty and
the Evolution
other
Crest.
one? The Evolution Crest.
Yep.
And to me, when I saw the breakdown, I was like, okay, that makes sense. There's like a clear halfway point where that's where you break it in half.
And there's a huge hiking trail to that pass, like a few miles from the parking lot. So we're like, well, we might as well just at least, leave some bear cans with the second half of our food there. So
yeah. That's cool. Yeah, definitely. It's interesting how you like you said there's even more of a supported roll, but it's almost impossible to even like pull off in a way. It's like you almost have to do each of those objectives separately, lay caches, and then come back again solo to go get those caches again.
Yeah.
It seems like you guys picked the nice balance between what Vitaliy did and what the other option could be.
It seemed like an obvious option, and anything else seemed really inobvious, and it would just be an extraordinary amount of work to drop caches anywhere on that ridge. And then also we didn't know where we were going to bivvy. Like, we had ideas, we had goals each day where we wanted to, but we had no idea if we were going to be able to keep Vitaliy's pace, or if we're going to struggle with route finding, or if weather was going to pop up. So if we're relying on bivvies or caches dropped at specific points, and we do get hit with a Sierra squall, now are we stuck on the ridge with nothing at all because we went supported and have no gear? Like, you know, it's the way we did it seemed like the obvious organic way and the good middle ground between, like, it's not going to take us a year to drop caches before, but we also do get to like drop half of our food for the entire thing, which is huge. So yeah, it seemed like an obvious good option for us.
Hell yeah. So
Yeah,
you guys, go ahead, man.
We talked about it and we were like, well, there's this huge hiking trail going to Bishop Pass in the middle, and like not stashing food there would almost be as contrived as like stashing food every night. And which was kind of, I'm not criticizing Vitaliy saying it's contrived. He was trying to make it as difficult as possible. And I think that in contrast, like, our strategy is usually to make something as fun as possible. Yeah. So which is something I've always lived by in climbing. Like, climbing is the funnest thing I've ever done. And it's also really hard and challenging mentally and physically, but the whole idea is it's supposed to be fun. So if we can, you know, hike with whatever 6 pounds of food instead of 12, like, that's just objectively a lot more fun.
I'm interested. I listened to Vitaliy's podcast. I'm interested in learning why he wanted to suffer so much in that moment in his life. So maybe I'll be able to cross that bridge one day.
Yeah, you need to have him on next.
I know. I talked to him a bunch, and he said he's a little intimidated with all the interviews he's done recently. So he's got to wait at least a year before he talks again publicly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he lacks any self-promotion almost to a fault. He's extraordinarily accomplished and like the best guy you'll ever meet, but he's also like humble to a fault. So you got to really draw it out of him, you know.
For sure.
He's got some incredible stories, but he's a tough nut to crack. So
yeah, no, I'm stoked to get on the show. He says he loves the show. He loves what we're doing here, and he definitely wants to come on. He just needs some space between his interviews, so he'll be on. Okay, so you've got like the logistics, you've got your plan, you know, like what you're going to get into. How are you guys like physically and mentally preparing leading up to the objective? What goals are you setting? What climbs are you doing?
Well, physically and mentally, our plan was to go to Chamonix and like just do a bunch of big alpine climbs. We were there for 5 weeks.
Spend time at altitude, spend time climbing a lot, you know, just get really comfortable on granite, comfortable with these big days, maybe doing some different tactics where we're simul climbing or we're soloing like alpine routes and just getting a lot of time. I mean, physically to get fit, you know, because everything up there is at 12,000 feet or above or something if you're taking the lifts up. So it's good acclimation and good to like, we were doing a lot of work dialing our kit and our systems, using the bags that we wanted to use on the Goliath and testing out gear and testing out our different setups and stuff. So the intention was good.
That was the intention. Yeah. So a whole storyline behind this is that the first climb we did in Chamonix, we had an accident and I broke my ribs, and I ended up basically not climbing for the 2 months before the Goliath. Yeah. So Tanner was able to run around and he like found other partners that climbed in Chamonix. I spent a month on the couch.
Yeah, which wasn't
that great.
Almost sidelined to the whole Goliath for two reasons. One, because the accident we had was like pretty jarring and kind of really challenging to bounce back from mentally to kind of feel comfortable in the mountains again. And then secondly was Mike was injured with broken ribs, like laid up on a couch for 6 weeks at least before we stepped off. So
we did one big climb when we first got to Chamonix, and then basically I spent the rest of the trip eating cheese and drinking wine in France. And Tanner was running around the mountains.
Yeah, Tanner, you did that write-up. For people who aren't familiar, it's definitely something to check out, super detailed. Maybe give people a teaser, a short, high-level view of kind of what happened so people have an idea of kind of reframing this and how it plays into your risk management and the actual objective that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So we got to Chamonix and we were super stoked on the Drew. It's this really iconic formation in Chamonix. I think it's one of the most beautiful walls on planet Earth. It's just a perfect, like almost 4,000 foot spire. It's just perfect. And we wanted to do the American Direct on it, which is a Royal Robbins route. It seemed like a cool homage to the valley up in Chamonix, and it's just this like mega classic international line that doesn't get done a ton because it's really dangerous on the Drew. There's a lot of rockfall and the conditions are pretty poor often. There's a lot of snow on route and mixed climbing that you can do in rock shoes or you can do with tools and picks, and it just seemed like a good goal to kind of come out swinging on in Chamonix. So it was the first climb we did there. We were there for like 2 days. We took a train up, hiked in, bivvied about an hour from the base, stepped off, climbed the entire route in like 6 hours or something, which is insane because we simuled the entire wall, on site, climbing up through like 511. There's a couple of 511 pitches up there, and I think we did really well on the actual climb itself. We were really comfortable and we climbed really well, and I was really happy with our performance and our tactics and strategies and stuff on that. We started to get close to the top, and I had a really big scare where I had a piton pull on me. We were kind of off route, and I was looking to orient as I wanted to check the map on my phone to see kind of where we were on the Drew's face. There was so much snow up there. It was such like early season conditions that we couldn't really stay on route even if we knew where that was, because we basically were kind of getting forced into whatever was dry rock. The north face had quite a lot of snow and ice on it still. So I got a little lost and I saw a couple pitons. I assumed that was en route. I went up to hang on a piton, and when I clipped into it, I sat in my harness to look at my phone, and immediately I was in the air. I ended up falling probably around 60 feet or so.
Jesus.
Past the belay.
Yeah, past the belay, like over the roof. I mean, we were simul climbing, but fortunately this was at the beginning of a block. So Mike actually had me on belay, but he was getting ready to start climbing. So he had like a bunch of rope out and he was doing all of his own chores, which I know is going on. And the climbing we just weren't placing much gear because we were simul climbing. So I had a single like black totem placed, and then 20 meters above that I had a piton clipped, and then probably 20 meters above that was where I clipped into the other piton and then took the fall. So took an enormous like 60 footer, and we core shot the rope like into oblivion. I mean, we had like a 10-foot section of just cord, no sheath at all, which looking back we got really lucky on, because that could have, the rope probably should have just cut and killed both of us. So we pulled back on to the wall. That was pretty scary. And we finished up to the top, and we ended up having a lot of route finding trouble up at the top because there was so much snow on top. Like, it was a matter of what can we physically climb right now. Like, every chimney is packed, every crack has ice in it. There's a million different options, and they all dead end at different points. And like, we probably tried 10 different ways to get up to the summit block before we actually found anything that would even go. So we summited, and then you have to traverse to the Grand Drew. It's a little bit of a snowy ridge traverse on these kind of cornices up there. And then you climb 3 more pitches, you get up to the top of the Grand Drew, and then you rappel off the south face of that, off the backside. There was so much snow up there, just feet and feet of snow, that everything was buried. And there was no signs of human life at all. There was no footprints. There was no, nobody had been up there probably that whole season. So we had this entire blank canvas where we're looking for 2 rappel bolts in just this gigantic summit sea of snow. And we ended up looking for several hours, and tensions were getting pretty high up there because it was getting late, and we summited the Grand Drew at 4 p.m. or something, and we spent an hour looking for bolts, and then 2 hours looking for bolts, and then coming on 3 hours of just like frantically
walking back and forth on the ridge, like looking for this first anchor. Like,
this is after you've already like both almost died. So like cortisol levels are shot. You guys are like at wit's
and
end
we
at
went
this point.
we went very light on this. We didn't bring anything. We had like a micro puff, I think, between us or something, and
Wow.
we fully committed to the end of day style, and we were comfortably doing that with the speed that we ascended, and our timeline was looking really good, and we summited with
With like 8 hours of daylight
Yes,
when we
tons of
topped out the
daylight.
route.
and the wheels were just falling off where you can't just like wing it going down, because it's like 15 double rope rappels. We don't have enough gear to like leave and just make our own rappel route. We have to find the actual rappel route, so, and now we have core shot ropes that we had to cut, and we know that we're already gonna have to make some adjustments because we're not going to reach some of the rappels. And it was just getting really stressful because we were starting to worry that we could be benighted up there without, again, any overnight gear, and it's up at almost 13,000 feet. And it would have been a bad situation.
Do you guys have like a in-reach device? Could you guys have called for a rescue? Is that even an option?
We actually we didn't even consider that, or we didn't talk about it. I don't think that we would have.
I think it would have been a really bad night, but like our lives weren't in danger. We would have just had to like cuddle all night. And
I don't.
something like
We never even discussed like that. I'm not going to call for rescue unless I'm going to imminently die. So I think
worst case scenario, it would have been really miserable and really cold, but like our lives weren't at risk.
Yeah, I'm not going to call a helicopter if it's just going to be a cold night
for comfort. Yeah.
No, respect.
Yeah, so we ended up finally found the rappel bolts through this convoluted series of fixing lines and dropping into gullies and stuff, and it was just really, really stressful. It felt like we were going to be stuck up there overnight, and it was stressful because I felt like we had this like really good victory kind of at our fingertips, and it was slipping away because we were botching the descent, which is the most dangerous part of the day. The day's not over until you're back on the ground. So we started rappelling, and we did a couple rappels, and it took us hours to do the rappels because we were having to swing around at every single rappel. We'd have to swing around and look for the next set of bolts.
I mean, there were some where we were having to dig through the snow, like just like hoping to find a bolt,
like looking at the topo and being like, it should be somewhere around this area. We're digging through snow and looking for like, where would a rappel station be in theory if it was bolted in this area? And
this is pretty solid rock. I might put bolts here and then dig. Nope. Okay. How about this one? Nope. Okay. Yeah. Oh, look, there's bolts. Cool. After like an hour of that. And like we had to do some extra rappels because there was like one rappel that said coil your rope and walk 100 meters. And it was just like a 60 or 70 degree snow slope across the ledge you're supposed to walk on.
Yeah.
With like, halfway up the mountain with 500 meters of air under you. So you're not just going to walk across that, like, especially without crampons or.
Yeah. So we had to get creative. We just didn't find some rappel anchors. We had to leave slings, and we fortunately were able to find the next set and stuff like that. So we got to the third to last rappel, or the second to last rappel. We got to the second to last rappel, and never found the bolts. It looked like it was at the top of this chimney system, kind of. This little like sheer vertical, it's basically a chimney, but it's like a vertical couloir kind of thing where it kind of funnels into it. And we, a couple rappels prior, we had switched over to simul rappelling because we were struggling to find the bolts so bad that we figured that it would be better if we could both swing around and look for the bolts at the same time, at least split the work up. So we never found the bolts on the second to last rappel, but we found this enormous pillar that looks like it has been rappelled off of for like 50 years. It had a lot of brand new cord and tat on it. It had old tat on it. It looked like a good station. So Mike actually found that first and called me over. We got to it. We tested it. We tested the slings, everything. It seemed fine. It was new. It looked like new gear. It's on the rappel route. We're like, oh, maybe this is just the anchor. Maybe there's no bolts here. Maybe it's this giant pillar. I don't know. And it was about dark there. It was actually getting dark there. That's the rappel station that we pulled our headlamps out on. And we're kind of celebrating at this point. We're like, man, we're two more rappels. We're almost to the ground. Like, this nightmare is almost over. So we went in. We both went into indirect to this anchor. So we're both hanging from it. We pulled the rope from the last rappel. We threaded it through this one, and we just kept simul wrapping because that's what we had been doing. And in hindsight, maybe we wouldn't have simul wrapped off of like a gear anchor as opposed to bolts, but I mean, in my head, like if I can't simul wrap off of a anchor, I don't want to rappel off it myself either. So I'm assuming that these anchors are good because we tested it and it's obviously been a rappel route for years. So, yeah, we did our little checks to go on simul rappel and, both loaded the rope and then, Mike, it was a pretty tight chimney. So I let Mike drop below me. I was just going to kind of hover above him as we dropped. And as Mike dropped below me, I'm like kind of hanging on the anchor, just like, doing whatever. And, this like super like reality warp happened where I'm like looking at the anchor and then I see it like start to just like lean out toward me. And I didn't really understand what I was looking. It felt like I was having vertigo or something. It felt like the whole world was moving in front of me. The whole wall in front of me is leaning out, like actively moving. And it took me a second to understand, like, that can't be what, like, I can't be seeing what is actually happening right here. I must be dizzy or having some sort of hypoxic episode or something. And then no, sure enough, the entire pillar just kept leaning and it hit the point of no return where I'm like, okay, our anchor's failing. It's actively failing right now. So all I managed to yell was Mike, and Mike looked up, and at that point, the anchor was nearly 90 degrees and was falling out of the wall.
I mean, we both tried to like grab some holds because there was a bit of a stance there.
Yeah.
So we both tried to like grab something, but it's hundreds of pounds of granite that we were clipped to.
Yeah, I grabbed this like really, really positive like handlebar jug, thinking I'm gonna save us. And the second that Mike and the rock, the weight caught me, it just ripped me off like a fly. I never had a chance.
I just felt the rock flip since it was clipped to my belay loop, obviously. I felt it just rip me off and just pull me down like face first. And there's just this rock ahead of me flying down a vertical wall and I'm clipped to it. And then I see the glacier below and we're just free falling to our deaths at that point.
Yeah, it was this really intense time dilation where it felt like I've never experienced anything like this, where the whole incident felt like it lasted 10 minutes, but it was like 5 seconds, but everything was happening really, really slowly. And I remember having a bunch of like really intense, coherent thoughts all while it was happening in like a matter of a second. And it was in that moment, I knew for a fact that we were going to die. I wasn't curious about if that was a possibility. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt we're dead. And it was this really kind of jarring realization where I wasn't like scared. I mean, Mike said the same thing. Like I wasn't scared. I was just like, fuck, here it is. This is it. And it like you hear about stuff like that happening, but you don't think it's going to happen to you. And it was this like really crushing, almost embarrassment, like as we were in the accident, where I was like, I can't believe we just did that. And I don't know. I remember thinking like one of my last thoughts was just like, I wonder if this is going to hurt, like as we hit here. And yeah, just waiting for it to happen, because we had just accepted that like, well, we're dead. There's no way to get out of this. Like we're attached to this giant boulder. We have several hundred feet to the glacier below us. There's nothing to be done anymore. And now we just lay in our bed and, here we go. Like this is going to be it.
Mike, what was going through your head?
I remembered having this thought of almost like, I would say that like, I think anyone who's spent a lot of time up in high places like that and reading and learning about accidents, you kind of like hear about these types of things happening. And of course you pretty much never hear about survivors, but you hear about people, I don't know, falling off of El Cap or ripping anchors in the mountains. And I've always, there's maybe this morbid curiosity about like, oh, I wonder what that's like. Or I wonder, what people experience when they go through a horrible accident like that and fall off a mountain to their death. And in those seconds, like as the anchor ripped and we were just free falling, I just remember having this thought like, oh, this is what it's like.
Yeah, I've visualized this a lot, which sounds psychotic, but I've I do a lot of soloing and we do a lot of high risk things, and for me a way to manage that fear and stuff is I've visualized what it would feel like or what it would look like to be in these accidents, and it kind of helps me process the reality of like, well, this is a possibility, and if I'm okay with that, I can do this anyway, but I'm not going to act like that's not a possibility. That's not a good way to approach this. I want to think about what it would feel like to go through this, and then I can choose to go anyway, but I'm not going to act like that doesn't exist. So I've kind of visualized this a lot, and that was a big part of that accident, was like, experiencing it, like really experiencing what it was like. And we got to experience that whole accident right up to the point where we should have died, but we didn't, and we got away with it. But it kind of reframed my visualization of this whole thing, because now I've actually lived it in like a real way, and I felt those emotions where I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was dead. I was going to die. I knew that. So I've kind of run through that gambit of emotions now in my head and experienced it. And
I mean, that's the reason that I read, and I encourage everyone to read like Accidents in North America Climbing, just to like every year, just to understand like what are the possibilities of participating in this dangerous activity. And you understand the possibilities, but that's different than experiencing them. And then when you experience it, it's almost I won't say satisfying and like you're happy about it, but it's satisfying as in like you just get to like see something that you visualize so much. And in that moment, yeah, it was just this like satisfying, that morbid curiosity of like, okay, now it happened to us. Now it happened to me. Like, that's it. I mean, we're dying, but also like, okay, now I see. So having that like feeling of knowing that this is what's happening was almost like deep acceptance of like, and I would say satisfaction. Like I using that word in a very specific way of like understanding.
So
like,
you guys have been preparing for this mentally just because of the nature of the environment that you're in. How far off were your expectations of reality?
Are you talking about the accident or for the...
So you spend a lot of time in soloing terrain where you are visualizing falling to your death to familiarize yourself and to like actually conceptualize the risk that you're putting yourself in, and then choosing to move forward, right? So you're visualizing this fall to your death. Now you're actually falling to your death. How close were your expectations, your visualizations? Like, were you on point? Was it a sense of familiarity? You're like, wow, I'm here. I've been planning for this in a way. I've been visualizing this. Or was it like, this is fucked. This is so far worse than I ever imagined. Like, how far off was your expectation versus reality?
I don't think it was. I mean, it was extremely jarring. I kind of struggled with some like what I would probably describe as PTSD after that for a couple weeks, where I was having these like really jarring nightmares that I almost every night I was waking up in this explosion of body parts where I had just fallen to my death again, and I couldn't stop replaying the visual of the wall leaning out. I just kept having this picture in my head of everything that I'm standing in front of just teetering out and failing, and that's imminently leading to my death. But I think in the moment, it wasn't. It was such a guarantee that we were dead there. It was such a sure thing that there was nothing to do except just accept it. It wasn't like scary. It wasn't there. I don't know. It was just this really like kind of void. Yeah, I don't know. There was just nothing to do but just like take the ride at that point. And it was just this really kind of dark acceptance again, where I was just like, man, fuck, here it is. Let's go. Let's take the ride and let's see what this is all about. So, I mean, there was a lot of emotions afterwards in the following weeks and stuff that came and went, and a lot of processing that had to get done to kind of be able to digest this in a way that allowed us to go back into the mountains. But in the actual moment, it wasn't exciting. It wasn't scary. It was just like the reality, like, okay, here it is.
I guess sense of emptiness. Yeah.
I think it was jarring because the way you kind of anticipate something like that happening is like imagining you're like soloing and you get off route and you're all like Elvis foot, and then all of a sudden you fall and die, or you're jugging a rope that you know is over a sharp edge and you're up high on El Cap and you think you're gonna fall and die, and all those times you think you're gonna fall and die, that's not when it happens.
Yeah.
It's like we were mentally like, oh great, we're about to get down to the glacier before dark. And part of the motivation of like trying to get down a little bit faster was that the rappels end on top of a heavily crevassed glacier. So we were hoping to navigate that before dark.
Yeah, we had at least 2 hours of navigating this big ice field.
So there was like a
Heavily
reason to
crevassed.
get off the mountain before dark, because if we didn't want to get benighted on the glacier, that might have even been worse on the mountain.
Which happened to our friends. They got down to the glacier, and then they got so lost in the crevasse field that they had to sleep on the glacier.
Wow.
You know,
Well, they couldn't sleep. You're on ice and snow. They had to just walk around all night trying to stay warm.
Yeah, they're like only a couple hundred meters from the Sharpua hut, and they got benighted and spent 10 hours wandering around this heavily crevassed ice field. So we've already gotten away with one close call today. We have seemingly got away with a second close call today by not finding the rappels for 3 hours, and now we're almost to the ice fields, and it feels like we're almost out of this shit show. And then we're almost like celebrating at this point because we're 2 rappels off the ground. And
so that mental transition, like that being the setup for then all of a sudden being that experience of like, oh, now this horrible accident that you've always dreaded is finally happening. I think it was just like the most jarring and noticeable like element of this accident happening, because there's all those times where you think you're in a really sketchy situation, and like I think if something like that happened like when you're already really stimulated and like kind of waiting for it to happen, it would probably be a very different experience than when you're like calm and like, okay, we've just done 15 rappels, we're just doing the 16th, and then all of a sudden you're falling to your death.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think I'll just like look at an anchor. Obviously, it's super bomber, but the conceptualization of what you're talking about here, like you're just hanging onto a wall. Like all of a sudden, in a fraction of a second, everything can just be fucked. Like your exact situation, and that transition from safety to death in such a fraction of a second is like, it's like almost too much for your brain to even comprehend. Whereas,
if there was a situation where the anchor had started leaning, and I'm like, Mike, we have to get off the anchor, and then it starts to lean a little more, and then we're it's in this precarious situation for 5 minutes where we're freaking out and we're trying to get attached, and like I could see that being a really, really dreadful situation, but we didn't have any time to like transition into fear or being scared for our lives or anything, because we were just falling before we knew what was happening. So I think if there was a situation where we saw that coming on and we had the human instinct to be scared for our lives as it was happening, I'm sure that would have happened. We would have been freaking out, and it would have been a totally different experience. But fortunately, if that is applicable here, that wasn't the case. We just were good, and then we weren't in a matter of a second. So there was no transition period. It was just like, okay, here it is. Like let's do it.
So I get this feeling sometimes riding my street bike around. Like I'll get home, I'll start cooking dinner, and then I'll have this weird feeling like, is this real? Or did I die on the highway? And I'm just like living through this like post-death reality. Yeah. And I'm going to realize I'm dead at some point.
I've had that on the wall before. That's funny. I've had that where I'm like, I'll have some sort of deja vu or some sort of like mental hiccup where I just all of a sudden will be like, I wonder if I died earlier today. And this is just me getting, this is just my 43rd life in the simulation where I'm like, they just reset me again or something like that.
Yeah. Or it's like, it's this hallucination that you're living out that, you can't decipher the reality between whether you're dead or not. Like, did you guys have that experience after you survived?
I actually did have that. Yeah. I had this really, it's like kind of hard to articulate, but this really abstract feeling of like, I wonder if we did die there. And this is just some sort of big replay, or this is just some sort of reset or something like that, because it felt like it was such a shared thing that like, I don't know. I mean, also to finish the story, because I feel like that's relevant here.
Yeah, we're still free falling in the story.
Yeah. So we fell, and Mike.
Well, basically, like we fell, and we had those like, all this experience we're talking about was like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Or like not even maybe. And then so we were totally free falling. It definitely had the sensation of absolutely free falling. It's like a vertical wall, but somehow, as we fell, there were like some boulders sticking out, like a small slab section.
We fell into the chimney.
And I think I bounced into the chimney. I think that's when I broke my ribs, was I hit something and somehow it bounced me backwards into the chimney. Mm. And my feet hit something and my shoulders hit something and I stemmed across the chimney. And then Tanner landed on my back.
So
and then at that moment, I was first thing I thought was, oh, that rock is about to pull us out of here again, because we came to a stop. And I looked down. I was going to be like, can I unclip from it before it rips us down again or something? And I looked down, and all the slings are just in a mess below my legs. And I see the rock still just free falling end over end all the way down to the glacier.
Yeah. So Mike fell probably 30 or 40 feet and managed to like, I will never understand in a million years how Mike managed.
I just bounced in.
He managed to like self-arrest in this vertical chimney after falling like 40 feet of sheer vertical rock. He managed to like expand his body to like wedge into this chimney. And then I just landed on him straight from like 40 feet.
I just felt his boots on my back. And I was just like this, like I've had like my arm behind my head and my feet were on like a hold. There was like a pretty good foothold. And I was just stimming.
Yeah.
Like I was climbing the Steck Southway or something.
And I
and Tanner's just standing on my back.
Yeah, I just like crushed
and we're not dead.
And yeah, same thing. So we came to a stop for a brief second, and then we were waiting for the rock to pull us off, obviously, when the rope caught. And I remember we both were like trying to rip our gree-grees off. And then like Mike said, we like a couple seconds went by and we hadn't been ripped off yet. And we started to like we didn't want to move because we were like very precariously wedged in this total
There's all this loose rock
and so we like are turning our heads looking around, and then we see the whole nest of slings just like sitting on this rock right next to us. And so apparently when this giant pillar teetered over and it flipped upside down, somehow all of the slings just slid off the top of it.
Oh my God.
Which like I don't understand how that's possible.
Must have like fallen, ripped us off the wall, because first of all the rock ripped us off,
and then
rotated again, and then just fallen out of the slings.
Wow.
Yeah, so then the rotation was like perfect, that when it caught, it just pulled everything off the top. And I don't know how, like, in a million, if you simulated that literally 1,000 times, I don't know if that would happen again. That seems like everything had to happen perfectly. The rock had to be the exact correct orientation when it went tight for the slings to not just like, because if it had been 20 degrees more either way, it's not going to slide off the top. It's just going to rip. Like, it would have taken these small, I mean, a 10-pound rock would have ripped us out of the chimney. Like, we were so precariously perched. So yeah, we came to a stop in the chimney and realized that we weren't going to be ripped off, and then it went into just crisis management mode.
I'm standing there, Tanner's standing on my back, like all the ropes are tied around us. I couldn't breathe because I just had the wind ripped out of me.
I thought Mike broke his back because he was like, Mike was moaning really.
I was like, when you get hit there, like,
I had the wind knocked out of him,
and he was like, what's up?
He was moaning in this like really intense way that was like,
like a guttural sound.
Yeah, my first thought was he broke his back. I think he broke his back. He's probably paralyzed. This was an enormous fall already. And then I got up, and I'm like, I'm in this 5th class chimney, and all I want to do is just be attached to the mountain in any way. So I start slamming cams in every crack I can find,
because it's all choss. It's like the first something you would climb.
The first 5 or 6 placements I did, I put the cam in and I pulled it right back out. Everything was loose. Nothing was attached. Everything was iced over. There was just like no gear. And I was starting to freak out because I was like, dude, we are really fucked now. Like, I think Mike has a broken back. I can't find any gear in this chimney. Our ropes are core shot to oblivion. They're all piled up.
When the rock fell, it landed right on our ropes.
And we had like over a dozen core shots in the ropes. And yeah, I eventually started finding cracks, and I built like a fucking 8-piece anchor or something. Like, I mean, I put cams in everywhere I could find and tied everything together. And we took like, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe to collect ourselves. And I just kept saying, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. Oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. I was like in the shock where I was like,
yeah, definitely.
I can't believe that just happened, like, and I'm mostly talking about, I can't believe that we're still alive right now. So yeah, we ended up building an anchor. We had to leave behind a couple cams, which we're happy to do. And we actually realized we were on the second to last rappel, and we fell so far when it was all said and done that we only had to do one rappel to get to the ground. So it was like,
so the good news, we got to skip a rappel.
So it all worked out.
Yeah, descent beta, free fall, rappel number, or the second to last rappel.
Yeah. So we ended up getting down to the glacier at around 11 p.m. or something like that, 10:30, 11. We got our rope stuck on the last pull, and but we needed it because we had more rappels to do to get off the Sharpua Glacier, and then so I had to reclimb this last pitch. We were so over it, man. And Mike was like in pretty bad shape. He's like got broken ribs and he can barely walk. And so yeah, I went up and got the ropes and had to kind of short rope Mike down the glacier because he was like literally barely able to walk. And it took us 2 or 3 hours to get through the crevasses, and Mike was a trooper, man. He was like barely mobile in any way.
Yeah,
but
Tanner's like stomping steps in the snow ahead of me, and he's just like, "Come on, man, come on!" And I'm like, "I'm coming." And I had my hiking pole and my ice axe, and I was like, "I'm coming."
Holy
but
shit!
Like, oh man, that sucked. Like hiking down a glacier with freshly broken ribs is not an experience I can recommend.
Yeah, like how what was the extent of your injuries? Did you have like flail chest or like?
No.
Honestly, I don't know. I was just in a lot of pain, and then I kind of was optimistically thinking like, oh, it's probably just really bruised, like I'll probably be able to climb in a week or two. But a week or two went by and I was in just as much pain, and I honestly like didn't feel better until like a week or two before.
Did you go get x-rays? Did you see medical attention?
Back in Tahoe.
After I got home a month later.
Bro, come on.
Yeah, but because I just kept kind of thinking like, oh, it's gonna be better, and after a few weeks it was a little better, but I was still like, as in I could like sit up in bed, but it was still like too painful to, I don't know, climb or even go for a run or anything. So
did you ever have the impulse to sneeze?
Oh, that was the worst. And the worst was over the next couple weeks, like I was mostly just hanging out with friends, and some friends had guitars. I was like playing music and
he
drinking beer and you know,
yeah, laughing.
He kept laughing. Oh, it was the worst ever. Like, yeah, just hanging out with friends, you know, you end up laughing a lot. I was just in excruciating pain every time someone made me laugh. It was,
jeez.
But
that's crazy, guys. Fuck, dude. I wish I could give you guys a hug or something. That is just the fucking gnarliest story I've heard in a long ass time.
Yeah, that was our close call. I feel like we got away with that in a really genuine way, where it's like, I don't know. I'm not super religious at the moment, but I just don't know how you would recreate that scenario where we walk away in 1,000 simulations. It's pretty intense. So then we got down to the Sharpua hut at about 1 a.m. and it was this really jarring experience where we had just been literally fighting for our lives for the past several hours, and then we just opened the door to this hut that was totally empty. It's this beautiful modern mountain hut built right on the side of the Sharpua Glacier.
It's totally warm in there from like baking in the sun all day. It stays warm.
It's warm. It's this beautiful.
There's mattresses and blankets
and a kitchen and everything. And we walked in, and it was just like we opened this portal to like another world, and walked in and sat down, and we just sat in silence in the dark in the Sharpua hut for a couple minutes and just like tried to, you know, that was the first time that we got to take a breath this entire event, where we were like, okay, we're not going to die tonight. We know that we're going to be okay. And it was this really like crushing cascade of emotions and stuff that kind of rolled over me. And that was a tough night.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, we haven't even gotten into the Goliath Traverse yet and how that has played into all this. But like the weeks after, like what was that kind of psychological decompression like? Like how were you guys rationalizing the event? How did you guys like justify your survival? Because I think a lot of this, I think about these moments where we survive, and it's like where we survive where we literally shouldn't have, especially in your guys' case scenario. And at least the way I've justified it in my life through experiences that I've gone through is like, there's just a reason for me to be here, and it's my job to figure out what that purpose is. Like I have to complete something. There's a reason I'm here. And whether that's spiritual or not, it's like a purpose that kind of drives me. Like, is there some sort of justification or any sort of thought process like that you guys have gone through?
I'll say for me, I think I can accept something without rationalizing it or justifying it. It's more about just acceptance, because the world and the human experience is so chaotic, and that chaos exists on a spectrum, and maybe this is like near the far end of that spectrum. But like, I've just accepted that like life is chaotic, the world is chaotic, you know, people die every second, like such horrible things happen around the planet like constantly, that like I can just accept that like this falls into that spectrum of the chaos of the human experience. I don't need to like rationalize it or justify it or give it a divine meaning or give it any meaning. Like I can just accept that this is what happened and accept that we survived and, be happy to live my life as it is. Like I don't feel the need to justify it at all.
Yeah, I do need to rationalize things. I need things to make sense logically, I think, for me, and just in my daily life as well. I think I need things to make sense to be at peace with them. And it was easy to rationalize. It was a heavy winter there. This rock has probably been getting freeze thaw cracks in it for decades now. And we rolled the dice and we didn't, we weren't lucky this day. And we were probably the first ones to rappel off that anchor this year. And so it's easy to rationalize the fact that like this is a possibility in the mountains, this is a possibility in the alpine, this can happen with that same pillar could have been bolted. It was big enough to be bolted. Like the same thing could have happened if it was bolted anchors, where the entire feature, the entire monolith fails. Like that's a possibility. So I needed to logically tell myself that just because this accident happened doesn't mean that another accident is more likely to happen. These are independent events. They're not relying on each other in any way. So we rolled the dice and we lost on this run, where we, again, like if it wasn't us, it would have been the next party that rappelled off that. It wasn't like the cosmic universe trying to kill us. It was just, this was a time bomb that was waiting, and whoever rappelled off it first was probably going to die. And, I just told myself that like, this is a known risk in the alpine environment. And, it doesn't make it more likely to happen again. It actually is probably less likely to happen again, because now I'm going to implement all these psychotic tertiary and secondary and, whatever checks for every anchor I ever get to for the rest of my life now, because, while we checked this anchor, like maybe, I don't know, there's definitely a way to approach these rappel anchors now that's going to be a little more thorough than what we've done in the past. And still, knowing what we know now, I wouldn't have done anything differently then. We just didn't know that this anchor was a landmine ready to go. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, it took a lot of work to feel comfortable in the mountains again after that. It felt like everything I was climbing after that in the following couple weeks, I had this feeling of impending doom where I was waiting for the next accident to happen. And I had to keep telling myself that just because that happened doesn't mean that this is more likely to happen. And that's kind of how I dealt with it. So,
I mean, I basically didn't climb for the rest of the month. And then, after we got back to California, the first day we went climbing, we went to Lover's Leap to like climb a bunch of moderate routes. And I kind of had like a panic attack, like after a few routes, which I've never experienced anything like that in my life. Like we were just simul climbing something. I was on some like 5.9 or 10A crack or something. And I couldn't. And I just stopped and brought Tanner up and I was like, hey, if you want to climb this route, you need to lead this. Cause my body's like, my mind is not functioning right now. Like I had just exactly like what Tanner described. I had this feeling that something horrible was about to happen. Like every move.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to immediately go climb again and kind of confront and deal with these issues that I had now and, process them in real time, like on the rock, and kind of work through these new mental barriers that I had just created. And I think that was really helpful. It was one of those things where like, you got to get right back on the horse or it's going to be really, really hard later. And Mike didn't have that opportunity.
I was pretty jealous of that. I just spent a month, sitting there in pain, thinking about how scary climbing is.
Yeah.
Like
after we did that, a couple days later, I climbed Grand Capitan with our friend Isaac, and the climb went relatively well on the way up. I wasn't too wigged out on the way up, but as soon as we started rappelling, I went into this like hyper manic, like alert state where I looked at my watch metrics at the end of the day, and my highest heart rate the entire day was rappelling. It was like resting 160, where I was legitimately on the verge of a panic attack the entire rappel down, where every single anchor we went into, I was having this like fight or flight, like this is going to fail. This is going to fail. This is going to fail. Even if it's 2 bolted anchors with chains, I'm like, something is going to happen. And I told Isaac, I was like, dude, I need you to lead these rappels. You're going first. I want to see you on the anchor. I want to see that it's not going to break. you find the next one, you test that one before we pull this rope. Like, and he was great about that. And I was really struggling to work through those now preconceived notions that everything was going to fail in front of me. And
well, I mean, you've got to teach your brain through evidence, right? It's like,
exactly.
Prove to me that this stuff works, because right now I don't believe it, because I just had this crazy experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I got to work through all these issues right away, which I feel like is really important. I had a skydiving accident where a guy died on my load, and this was in a training military course, and it was the same thing. We hit the ground, this guy cratered, was no longer with us, and the instructor said, we're going to go right back up. Everybody on this plane, we're jumping right now, because if you guys don't jump right now, you might never jump again. Because if you let this doubt and this fear like root in you, if you let this happen and you just fester and think about what could happen, you might never be able to get out of this. And this was the same thing where I had to immediately go climb again and show myself that I can still do this, and it's not inherently more dangerous now because we had an accident. And it was this kind of unique situation that I haven't been in a long time, where I had to deal with a lot of mental barriers that I typically don't have. I don't get very scared climbing, and now I'm freaking out and I'm really uncomfortable in this place that has typically for me been my comfort place. I go to the mountains when I'm upset, or when I'm happy, or when I'm scared, or when I'm sad. I go to the mountains. That's my comfort home, you know? And now I'm struggling to feel comfortable in this place that is typically the place I go when I'm scared.
Yeah.
So it was tough. Yeah, it was tough to work through. Trying to reframe the incident in kind of almost a delusionally positive way, where I'm like, well, we got away with it. Now we're going to be extra safe in the future, and we're going to do all these double checks, and we're going to share our story, and maybe that'll save somebody else's life and stuff like that. So
yeah, Mike, how did you get past it? I mean, at this point, in the story, you've, unable to climb, you've got to Lover's Leap, you're having kind of an attack and having this PTSD symptoms. Like, how did you get on the other side? Because we did get to the Goliath, and you did do it. So
yeah, well, I can say whenever we were there in Chamonix, like a week or two after the accident, like I tried taking a bunch of Tylenol and like going climbing, and I just couldn't. Like lifting my arm over my head felt like I was getting kicked in the chest. So I just no amount of Tylenol was going to help me climb. So I just accepted that. Didn't climb for a month. I was pretty jealous of Tanner, like not just because he was doing some climbs I wanted to do, but mostly jealous because I knew he was like back on the horse. And I knew he was facing that, and that was something I would have to face down the road. So once we got back to Tahoe, the first day we climbed, it'll be really chill. Let's just simul climb these like moderate routes. That ended up for me not being that chill mentally. So we decided just to go cragging, and I said, you know what? I'm just gonna like start at zero and just like enjoy climbing, because I had this. I mean, climbing is like my favorite thing that I've ever done, and I had this crazy feeling of like I didn't really enjoy it. I was kind of over it, and I was like, well, this kind of sucks, because I know that I've had this feeling of being passionate about this activity before. I was wondering if I lost that. I was like, am I ever going to enjoy climbing again?
Yeah.
Did I just...
Do you have to resort to bird watching?
Am I going to have to... Exactly. Like, is it time to get binoculars? Like,
not the worst thing.
So yeah, I really had that question, but I said, you know what? I'm just going to step as far back as I need to. And I was staying with Tater up in Tahoe, and we went sport climbing, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to top rope today. So we went to a sport crag, and I just top roped, and I just felt the feeling of moving over the rock and, hanging on the rope and just taking it easy. And I had a little bit of fun that day. And there were still times where I was like getting to the crag, and I was like, I don't know if I even really want to be here right now. Like, I'd kind of like, I don't know, rather just be safe at home than like up here trying to climb this wall. This is kind of dumb.
It felt like work for a bit. It felt like work.
Yeah.
We had to do this thing that we weren't crazy about to like work through this issue and get back to where we really enjoyed the experience.
So it's almost like you were put in the shoes of someone who doesn't understand climbing at all and is scared of it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But honestly, after a few days of cragging like that, like I led some like easy, well-bolted routes and top roped some stuff, and began to feel like, oh yeah, like the movement and just enjoying that again. And then the last day we climbed in Tahoe, we went to Donner Summit and climbed that snowshed wall, which like the office cracks there are just so much fun, and I led like all the stuff there, and for me that was like it. I was like, okay, I'm back, because it's interesting, that place has been like a haven for me. Like I think that's the third time, because a few years ago, like I finished a long trip and I was like, I don't know, feeling kind of a little burned out, and I went to like the office cracks and I got super psyched again. And then last year before we did the triple, we spent like a few days there and like got really like dialed.
Yeah.
And then this year after the accident, like I was like, I don't know, top roping sport climbs, and then I went and like led the office cracks, and I was like, all right, I'm back. So like, yeah, that place has kind of been like my I don't know, my refuge, like my therapeutic center. There's like all those like nice 511 and 512 like splitters on the north face there.
That's awesome, man. It's important that you found that, and I think it's a good place to come back to if you ever find yourself in that situation again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah.
What a crazy story. Well, I mean, fuck, dude, I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody here. I'm glad you guys are alive. I'm glad you guys are sitting down with us today.
Thanks.
And
Let's do.
holy shit.
Yeah.
If Lives In were known for only one product, it would be their EcoTrek overalls. These are technical bibs built for the outdoors. Flexible enough to climb in, but tough enough to handle the abuse that climbing puts clothes through. They are also made from 70% recycled ocean waste, which I think is pretty cool. Trust me when I tell you, Lives In's EcoTrek overalls are the outdoor apparel you didn't know you needed. I already owned 2 of these before reaching out to Lives In. That's how much I love and trust this brand. Plus, they also make female-specific versions of these EcoTrek overalls with a patented GoFly zipper for easy trailside relief. They also have killer color options: the caramel yellow, olive green, stone charcoal, and the woman's only plum truffle purple. Plus, when you pick up a pair, you're not only upgrading your kit, you're supporting the climbing majority. Hit the link in the show notes and use code TCM15 at checkout for 15% off your next order. That's TCM15 for 15% off at checkout. So I think, with that foundation to kind of preface where you guys were when you guys were going into this objective, I think this is where we jump in. So let's see, man, I want to frame the objective just a little bit in terms of logistics and conditions before we dive into like the mental and physical challenges of the objective in the first place. So what was the route finding like? You guys don't have much beta on kind of like what specific routes, descent up to do. What were some of the areas of the objectives that were like the route finding was the hardest for you?
Well, I don't know if there's any one area or like peak that was more difficult or less difficult. I think a lot of it had to do with just rock quality.
Yeah.
Because if you're standing on a peak and you're looking at the next one, you see, okay, the ridge is descending for a quarter mile or whatever, and then it goes up to the next mountain. And then sometimes there's a head wall where you have to climb a few pitches worth of like more vertical rock. And if you kind of see like, oh, there's a corner system over there. Oh, maybe we can traverse around the tower a little bit over here. If the rock is solid, you can just kind of like pick whichever way you want and go for it. But it was more like where it was difficult was whenever the rock was really bad, and you're like, well, that looks really exposed in like 5.9 lie backing. I'm not gonna do on toss. Whereas if it's like bomber granite, you're like, oh, whatever. Like I'm just gonna climb that hand crack.
So I mean, ultimately, you're following rock quality.
We had zero information on any of these routes in terms of like route finding. So you would get to the top of a mountain, like Mike said, there would generally be a 500 to 1,000 foot drop on the other side of some big notch, and then you have to climb up another 500 or 1,000 feet to the next one, and you just did that 60 times. So from the top of it, you're looking at the next wall and you're trying to game plan different weaknesses and different ledge systems or different ways that you can connect. And so we had a general idea from the top of the previous mountain how we wanted to get up the next one, but like Mike said, sometimes you would get over there and the rock quality would be so horrific that like a broken hold here with this exposure, we're dead immediately. But maybe this other way is going to add a bunch of elevation and we have to go up and over and around, but the rock
it's less
quality
exposed.
Yeah.
Or maybe the rock is also shit, but it's just less exposed.
Yeah.
How many times did you guys make a wrong decision and had to backtrack?
A lot. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of, a few times, yeah.
yeah.
But also lots of times, like one of the pieces of advice that Vitaliy gave us was like, try not to backtrack.
Just
Because like
pick
if
a
you
way
see a line
and just go.
and you climb it, like if it doesn't feel great, like push it as far as you can, because it'll probably work out. And if you're constantly backtracking trying to find the best way on 60 mountains, like you're never going to finish it. So it's usually like, well, I don't know, this looks like a hard move, I can do one more move. And also keeping in mind the classic like soloing mindset of like only do moves you can reverse and all of that. And usually you just kind of like pick a line and you know it's not the best line, but it's the line you chose and you're just gonna like, stick with it.
Yeah, and we also had kind of a strategy that we were doing where somebody was generally in front, kind of scouting and doing a little bit more of the legwork, where you're, maybe climbing up and climbing down and going this way and climbing up and saying, hey, don't come this way, this doesn't go. So now you push ahead and you go that way. Or we would split up and find different routes and, hey, this way is good, this will go, come over here, stuff like that. Yeah. So it was a lot of just trusting your intuition to say, like, I think this is going to go. I've climbed enough mountains at this point and enough granite that I think that the way that this corner system is developing, I think that this should take us to the top or something like that. So, but it was always a sliding scale of like, how far do you want to take this line before you're so committed that like now you're doing, 5-10 moves and you're just hoping that it's going to connect at the top, or maybe you can't see the last 10 meters and there's a chance that that's going to terminate without a crack system and stuff like that. So it's always a gamble when you're committing to that. But ideally we had enough of perspective from the mountain before to have a pretty good idea on the line that we wanted to take, at least in terms of like how steep it is, or if we can see features in this direction and stuff like that. So
you're doing lots of like small scale route finding and also big picture route finding like simultaneously. Yeah.
But
very much.
Pretty much all the mountains and headwalls that we looked at, like you can see a few lines and you usually just pick one and climb it. But I guess the main difference is like the difficulty of the route finding was more related to the overall rock quality on the mountain.
Yeah.
Just because when it's solid rock, just the most obvious line, you would just climb that one. But when there's like a mixture of different lines you could choose, but also like different rock qualities, or maybe it's all bad, you have to be a lot more careful. So we might not just like push forward with the most obvious line if the rock is like imminently going to explode beneath our feet.
Which it seemed like there was a lot of.
There was every day something, and some days a lot more than something.
And like based off of like the stuff I read, it seems like the biggest crux for you guys was like just the simple mental attrition that you guys felt, just the sheer amount of exposure in loose rock and like no fall zones. Talk to me about that. Like physical exhaustion takes its own toll, but then when you have that mental exhaustion as well, it just makes everything more tiring, exhausting, and dangerous. Like how did you work to maintain mental acuity during that experience?
I said after our speed season last fall, like all the speed climbing we were doing, that I thought that was way more mentally taxing than physically. I think Mike disagreed with me, but I feel like being in that really high consequence terrain for super extended time like that, 15, 20 hours, I was just so mentally tired at the end of those days, because you're subconsciously redlining the entire day, where your subconscious knows that any mistake is going to cost you probably your life. This was an entirely new level of that, where it was really, really mentally exhausting in like a really profound way, where I hadn't experienced maybe ever in my life. I cried at the end of the third day. I think just because of how tired I was. I told Mike, I was like talking to him about how fucked this was, and I just like started crying, and I was like, I told him, I was like, I have no idea why I'm crying right now. Like I was like laughing while I was crying. I was like, I'm just so overwhelmed right now with like how scared I am for my life and the constant exposure to being in this no fault zone, that like I just had this overwhelming flood of emotions that I guess I just hit I sprung a leak up there. I was like, dude, I'm like, this is so much, man. It's the constant exposure was for me, the hardest part, because I really did I genuinely felt like we could die up here. Any of these days we could die with any mistake. And it felt really overwhelming a couple times.
Yeah. Mike, how did you handle the exposure like that?
Well, I think comparing it to like speed climbing, it definitely feels way different to me, because speed climbing, I always feel really safe. Like when I'm not, I know it's dangerous, and yes, that like any mistake, you can be in a horrible situation when you're like running it out on a wall. But like if you're climbing the nose for the 10th time or whatever, you know where you're going, you're comfortable, you have gear, you have cracks, you have a rope, you have good rock.
Yeah, sorry.
You can kind of like make that decision to protect yourself as you wish. But here, whenever we're just like questing up another big Choss mountain, like for the 10th time of the day, and you're physically tired, you feel like there's no safety net. Like you can't just like plug a cam and hang on it and say, hey, I'm done, let's bail. Like you're speed climbing in the valley, you can like bail with a single rope from anywhere. Here we're like committed.
Yeah,
and we're in the middle of it.
I just want to add that the difference is speed climbing. If there's a mistake, it's our fault. We made the mistake. We did something wrong. We climbed poorly. We made a technical error, whatever. Here it felt like we could do everything perfectly, absolutely perfectly, and still die with no notice at all at any moment up on this crest. And that was a variable that I hadn't experienced in the valley before, where when we're speed climbing, I'm monitoring my own performance and my own logistics, and I'm making sure I'm doing everything right, so I know there's not going to be an accident. But here there was this like new variable where it was basically just like we're climbing, and it felt like there was a guy following us playing Russian roulette, where he's just following us around, spinning the chamber, and he just keeps pulling the trigger behind our heads, and he's like, oh, got away with that one, with that one.
His name is Chaos.
Yeah,
like it felt like we added this whole new element where it was like, you know, some sniper in the valley like lobbing pot shots up at the wall. It's like well, we can do everything right and still get hit here. Like I just don't feel like there's anything we can do to mitigate this risk.
I mean, that's something we talked about a lot. Like, yeah,
the roulette,
like using that analogy, of like Russian roulette, because when you get to a peak or a ridge or something, and the way up is to just scramble up this Jenga pile of death blocks, like that's what you do, and it's all falling apart and disintegrating, and it's super exposed, and if something breaks or a big boulder rolls over, you might just die.
Yeah, it's like you get to the top and you're like, okay, that was a blank, we're okay.
Yeah,
and then you see the next mountain and it's like spinning the chamber again, and then you get to the next one and you're like, okay, that was a blank, spin it again, and you do that 60 times, and it's like, Jesus Christ, man, like this is exhausting.
The analogy that I've come up with to kind of describe it is like, when imagine you're driving and you're driving through like a city that you're not familiar with in rush hour, and you have to get across like 6 lanes of traffic to get to your exit ramp, and there's like motorcycles cutting the lanes, and there's like pedestrians. You know that feeling for 15 seconds while you're like changing all these lanes in the middle of LA at 5 p.m. You're like totally stimulated. You're looking around, you're looking for the motorcycle, you're looking for the pedestrian, you're paying attention to all these things, the turn signals. But then you get off the exit ramp, and then you like are kind of calm again. But this feeling of the Goliath was like hours and hours a day of that exact same sensation, when you're just like looking around, paying attention to everything. Is this rock good? Is that rock good? You know, where's my partner? Like, is he going to knock something on me? Am I going to knock something on him below me? And it's just like, you're constantly totally overstimulated. And
there's a million
deal with that feeling for hours on end.
Is your route finding
every single day?
Yeah. Is your micro route finding good? Is there a safer option 10 feet to the left? Is your macro route finding good? Is this crack system even going to take us to the summit? And then how's our water? How's our food? Have we eaten today? What's our timeline right now? How's the weather looking? Like, we have 8 more days of this. It's like you're so overstimulated with so many variables. It's like you're in a cockpit and you're looking at, 500 different gauges, and you're trying to monitor them all at once, and any of them could kill you. Is there overhead hazard? Is there something above that's going to send rocks down on us? Am I going to pull this block out of the wall and kill Mike below me? Like, it's that all day for 8 days, and it was really, really hard to manage all that at once.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting. I think you as you describe this, you like have a smile on your face. And it seems like, I think one of the reasons why we love climbing is because it forces us into the present. It like, we have to pay attention to everything around us, and you can't pay attention to anything else. And there's something that's so special about that. And it seems like the experience you guys had up there was just a like exponentially increased version of that.
Yeah, that's actually what I was gonna get at as far as like how I found the best way to deal with it, was that in the moment when you're in down climbing this face, and there's like 100 feet below you, and you have to get down to the call, and you look in front of you and there's like these holds, I would just spend the majority of the day focused on the next move and like basically the next pitch. Like, how do we get down to the call? And then sometimes when we were on top of the summit, we'd be like, oh, look, we can see our bivvy like right there, like, a mile or 2 away. And we were super psyched. Like, but then as soon as you leave that summit, you have like another 5 mountains. So you just focus on climbing this one. And every time like my mind began to wander to like, oh, we have 4 more mountains today, and then we don't know where we're going to sleep tonight, and then we have 6 more days, I would start to get like really stressed out. So I'd just focus on, well, that absolutely has nothing to do with whether or not I'm safe or successful, thinking about those things. The only thing that matters, the only thing that's going to affect like our safety and success is like down climbing this next like 10 feet. So you just go back to...
I would say that mentality works while you're moving through the mountains, but what happens in the evening when you stop? Because like each day is already so taxing, you have to do it again and again and again each day. And I'm sure the anxiety of like the anticipation of the next day after you're done with the current day and you're just sitting at camp, like, and you're like, fuck, I have to do that again. And I have to do that again and again and again. Like, how did you guys deal with that anxiety? Like, I would imagine there would be anxiety in the evenings. Like before,
I don't
not anxiety.
I don't think we had too much anxiety because I think we were really good.
I think as a team we're good at like the strategy and logistics.
Yeah, we're also good at I don't think mental resiliency would be the right word. Maybe something more resembling like delusional fantasy. I think we're good. Like we would set down camp and just have great evenings where I had a couple episodes of The Office downloaded on my phone.
Oh,
hell yeah.
We'd make dinner and set up camp and put on The Office, and we didn't really stress about the next days ever.
Well,
Even if we like started to talk about it, we would just be like, let's worry about this tomorrow.
Well, you can do the same thing of going back to the moment. Like right now, we need to find somewhere to pitch our tent. Right now, we need to like cook dinner. Right now, we need to whatever, put on a TV show or you just click into the kind of strategy mode where we're like looking at the map and just talking, no different than if we weren't on the ridge, no different than if we were like hanging out in the van looking at the map. It's like, okay, what are we doing tomorrow? We're doing this peak, this peak, this peak. It looks like we can probably bivvy here. So we're either like just focused on what we're doing in camp or back in our kind of like strategizing mode that we're comfortable with.
I think we're good at compartmentalizing, and we did a good job at like not stressing when we didn't need to. So at night, that was our time to recover. And so we ate as much food as we had allotted each night, and we rested well. I just shared this on Instagram. I think I got like an average of 8.5 hours of sleep a night, like really good sleep. We went to, I mean, we didn't do anything except for set up camp, eat, and lay down. And then we got up at first light and packed up, our camp, and then you just start climbing. And it's like, there's not a lot to figure out. Just point north, you're already on the crest, point north and start going. And like, I don't have to think about the next mountain. I have to think about what's 100 feet in front of me right now. And I'll deal with the next 100 feet when I get to the end of this one. And like, I think we did a good job at not stressing too much. Those were definitely the lowest points of the traverse, was when we got too zoomed out and we started thinking about how many days we have left and how many mountains we have today. And this was so scary. I know there's another scary section coming up and stuff like that. That's when things got bad. But if you just stayed really present and tried to focus on what you were doing at the time, there's no singular move that's going to stop you. There's no singular section that is going to stop you, short of an accident or something like that. So I think that was our strategy, and I think we did good at that. But that's kind of been our strength for a lot of these bigger link ups, has been being able to stay present and not stressing about what's 3 hours down the road, because that doesn't matter right now.
I think that might have been a huge benefit for us going up there together as opposed to Vitaliy being alone.
Yeah.
Because like he told us like he didn't sleep almost at all. Like, whenever he was up there, he was super stressed and anxious and thinking about all these things that were coming up. But since we were up there together, we were mostly able to kind of focus on the team and focus on each other. It's like, okay, I'm either like climbing with a friend, or I'm setting up camp with a friend, or we can talk about these things with each other. But I can imagine being up there by yourself, once you start kind of getting into this rabbit hole,
start spiraling,
you could easily spiral. And like, whenever I'm by myself in the mountains, like the mental challenge is that you can just like spend hours just dwelling on something. But as soon as you like have to communicate with your partner, then you can kind of like get snapped out of it and get back to where you are. So I think that was probably a huge benefit going up there with a partner.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions, was whether or not like the partnership helped or hindered the objective in certain parts, and it sounds like it was a keystone element of your guys' success.
Oh, it helped a ton. Yeah,
I think Vitaliy doing it solo is like way more hardcore. Yeah.
I mean, most of my hardest days mentally have been big solo days, because it's like it's easy to spiral. It's easy to like get stressed out, and as soon as something roots like that, you're fucked. You're never going to dig out of that if you're by yourself. I mean, it's going to take an act of God for you to stop that cascade where you just implode internally. And yeah, I have the opportunity to tell Mike, like, Mike, I'm not doing too good right now. Like, I'm kind of struggling mentally. I need some support, or being able to strike up conversation about whatever we're excited about. And it just distracts you. It makes you not think about, how miserable this is. And if I'm focused on how's Mike doing, I'm not thinking about how miserable I am, and then vice versa. So if we're focused on the team and each other and how are we doing as a team, we're not thinking about how tired we are and stuff like that, because that's not the greater good. The greater good is the team's success here, and that's more important.
And also just being able to like have like a backup to your decision making, because if you get to somewhere and you're going to rappel and you kind of put in some nuts and put a sling around like a block and you're like, I don't know, I guess this looks good enough. If you're by yourself, you just decide it looks good enough and you go for it. But whenever you can like ask your partner, hey, do you think this looks good? And he's like, yeah, I think so too. That just feels so much better to then trust your life to that anchor and rappel off.
Yeah. No, for sure. That makes sense.
Or being able to place some backups and then have your partner remove it. Honestly, like we had some nuts and a couple cams with us, and lots of times if we were doing a rappel, we'd place the cams as backups, and then the second person.
I think we backed up every rappel, which is something that we wouldn't have ever done before the Drew accident. We would have rappelled off sketchy shit and taken more chances because we hadn't seen that in reality. And we approached that way differently on this. We backed up every rappel. We put new tat, even if there was already tat. Like, we took all these extra safety precautions, because that was a big scare for us. Was we knew we were gonna have to do some sketchy rappels. That's just the reality of this, and so we were trying to mitigate that risk as much as we possibly could, because it would be so stupid to do this and survive all of the like insane 510 chaw soloing that we had to do and then die on a rappel because we didn't want to back it up. Like, that would seem
especially
insane.
After the accident with the Drew. It's like,
exactly, that would be so embarrassing. The lesson. Yeah. So
and usually we still like didn't rappel unless we absolutely had to. Like, if it's a easy enough down climb you feel like you can do with 3 points on, I'd rather be like soloing 3 points on than trusting your life to an anchor. And
yeah, for sure,
because that's it. That's 1 point.
In partnerships, it's best. The strongest team is when each person plays to their strengths, right? Like, you can't be completely equal. So what would you say your guys' strengths are individually that you bring to the team?
On the Goliath
I mean, I think I would say they're like tandem. I would say they're one and the same, right?
No.
Okay. Let's.
I think something like the quad, or like just free climbing in general, is way different than the Goliath. Okay,
let's talk about the Goliath then. What strength did each of you bring to the table in the partnership?
I think Tanner's really good at like getting the like driving ahead. It like whenever you're have this like moment where we were tired, like there was definitely some points, especially since I spent like a month not climbing, where I was like physically really tired and Tanner was just like keep charging, and I think that was like really important at some points. I don't think I was ever about to like quit or anything, but there were definitely times where I was just feeling worked and Tanner was able to be like, no, like let's just keep going, and kind of like pushing the momentum a little bit that way.
Yeah, I think Mike is like psychotically resilient, and he's able to suffer really positively. I never really saw him have a bad attitude or be negative in any way on the Traverse, and that's like one of my favorite parts of Mike and climbing with Mike is he's just astoundingly positive in his suffering. And even when, because I got to come into this thing off of basically a 6-month ramp up. I was really fit. Like, I was really alpine fit for this. And Mike came into this off almost 2 months of like being bedridden with broken ribs. And he still showed up and put out an incredible display of effort, and knew that he wasn't physically in the best shape for this as he could be due to that accident. But he gave 110%, and he never complained, and he was positive even when I wasn't. And that's just huge. That's like such a big part, I think, of our success, is the ability to stay positive when things are grim. And Mike's better at that than anybody I've ever climbed with. So even coming into this with a bit of a handicap like he did, just not going to sugarcoat it. Like I would have been fucked if I was bedridden off that too. So I was able to take on a little bit of extra work where I knew I was a little more fit for this. So I was able to push ahead and find the best lines and be like, hey, don't go this way, come this way. And that'll save him a little bit of extra work. Or like, hey, you can stay low here. You don't need to go up and over. So that'll save him a little bit of extra effort. And Mike is repaying the favor by keeping us positive and happy and like reminding us, like when things got bad, Mike would be the first to say, hey, let's just have fun. Let's focus on having fun. We're having fun today. Put on music. We're climbing. We're in the high Sierra. Let's have fun doing this. And that would snap us out of our funk faster than anything. And it was so valuable up on the ridge. It was really, really helpful.
Yeah, I guess like you can focus on the present moment and like the process, but you also have to have like your goal and like where you're going. So I feel like psychologically, we kind of had a bit of a like divide and conquer. Like Tanner was always really good at like reminding like, okay, this is where we need to be. Okay, this is where we need to go. But then I was also always thinking like, okay, yes, but also we're like here right now.
Yeah.
So between the two of us, we were kind of always like focused on where we are right now, but also focused on like the bigger place we needed to be.
Yeah. Each person sharing the load respectively.
Yeah. I'm not very good at pacing in general. That's not a like a self-aggrandizing thing at all. I need to be better at it. I generally have like an on and off and that's it. So Mike is really good at like, I feel like sometimes a bit of a dog on a leash where I'm just trying to run, and Mike is really helpful at holding that leash and being like, hey, you can't do this pace for 8 days. Like this is not realistic. And he's good at reminding us.
Like, hey, Tanner, have you eaten anything recently?
Yeah, he literally would remind me to eat every day. He would remind me to drink every day. Like I have a lot of trouble snapping out of these performance mindsets because I have two relationships with the mountains, and one is I love them and they're this incredible place for me to go connect with nature and, you know, experience a deeper side of life and stuff like this. And it's this really like abstract personal relationship that I have with this place. And the other relationship with the mountains is performance. And I'm there to work hard, and I get sucked into this performance mindset where I'm not even having fun half the time. I'm just focused on like pushing as hard as I can and doing whatever I said to do. And Mike was really, really good about trying to snap me out of the performance mindset a lot of times, because I would have burnt myself out on day 2 or 3. Like I just wouldn't have been able to do it. And that, I think that we complement each other really well in that way, where I'm trying to run and Mike is like, hey, enjoy this experience, enjoy where we are. Like we have nowhere to be except for our bivvy tonight. We have everything on our back. We can stop early if we need to. We have water, we have food, we're fine. And that was really, really important for something as big as this, for how long it went. Because I think my strategy probably wouldn't have worked just with the longevity of how big this was.
Yeah. I like how you guys answered that question for each other. I think that was pretty sick.
Yeah, I don't want to tell you what I'm good at.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. No, you brought up, this is a bit tangential, but very topical. So you brought up the difference in climbing between performance and like this abstract value that we draw from it.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting how you tagged performance with like the lack of, or the absence of happiness. It's like, it's this all-encompassing thing that we're driving for, and it pushes us, but we almost lose the joy in climbing when we obsess over performance. Would you like agree with that statement?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I drive a lot of happiness from success and pride of knowing that I gave everything I had and tried hard and stuff. And so maybe that's more like type 2 fun, stuff like that, where I'm like, this is not going to be fun while I'm doing it. But I'm going to have fun and I'm going to have pride afterwards, knowing that like I tried really hard, and you have that feeling of accomplishment. But I definitely let myself get sucked into that way more than I'd like to admit, where I'm like, I'm just focused on succeeding and I'm not actually enjoying the thing that I'm doing. It's something I'm working on. It's part of that hyperfixation on whatever I'm kind of oriented toward at the moment. And, yeah, I think Mike is the best person I've ever seen at not doing that, where he's always having fun and he's always focused on like enjoying the experience and the presence and stuff like that. And, yeah, I don't know. I think the mountains are a cool arena where you can really try as hard as you want. There's no ceiling. There's no winning. You're not going to just like win one day and be done with it, you know? So I like the ability to pour in as much as I can to this and then see return on that. But a lot of times that goes too far, and I have a tendency to get way too performance driven on a lot of this stuff. So
I think the one issue with performance is that it has diminishing returns. I think we're human, we get older, we aren't going to be able to perform as much as we can in our prime. And so if you spend an entire life of climbing chasing performance, you're eventually going to get burned by climbing because
that's gonna fuck me at some point, I'm sure.
It depends on what element of chasing performance you enjoy. Do you enjoy the result, or is it the process, right? It's like the classic dichotomy. So if what you enjoy about chasing performance is trying your best and trying hard and feeling like you've grown and feeling like you've reached a potential and reached that place within yourself, then I don't think it grows old. And for me, that's the reason I chase performance, is like, if I send an 11A or 15A, whatever, I don't really care. It's like, or if I do a hard, I don't know, 2-mile run or a ultra marathon, what's the difference? You know, what matters is like what my ability is at the moment and what part of myself I'm able to reveal through that experience. So if it's really difficult, like there's times where I'm just walking uphill with a pack at a good pace, my heart rate is high, my legs are tired, and I feel so good because I know like I'm like reaching a certain level of performance, I guess I would say. And that's like a really satisfying feeling to me, to like be at that threshold. So
what do you think the secret is? Because envision yourself in your 60s, 70s, maybe you have some sort of like health issue that prevents you from climbing very hard. Maybe you, like the best you can climb is like 5'9", 5'10". Do you still feel like you're going to be able to carry that mentality into that version of your life and find meaning and joy in these outdoor pursuits without the same level of performance that you've had as the past version of yourself?
I mean, for me, absolutely. Because first of all, there's two ways I enjoy climbing. One is just to be in the mountains and to climb, and the other is the performance. But like I said, the performance is scalable. And like, for example, free climbing, sport climbing, like every year, because I do walls and alpine climbing and these things, like for the last few years, my like free climbing ability has fluctuated about a number grade every year. Like I go in the mountains, I run around, I do all this other stuff, I come back, I like climb a number grade weaker. But at that time, like usually the first couple sessions, like, okay, like I have to recalibrate, but then I can have fun trying hard on like whatever the grade is. So if I get to the point where I completely lose that and like trying hard at all is like, I can't recover. Like if my limit is 10A and I'm 70 years old and I climb a 10A and I'm in bed for a week, I probably won't do that anymore, but maybe I can still climb 5.5. And then I'll lose that part of like trying hard and feeling like I'm performing whatever the grade might be at that moment. But I'll also still have the ability of going and just being happy to be in the mountains. I mean, if I can climb Cathedral Peak for the rest of my life, like I will be so satisfied, or whatever it is, or go for, a hike up to Snake Dyke, or even just walk down to the crag here and climb whatever bolted 5.8 there is. Like I will be able to be outside and be in nature and connecting in that way that like I enjoy just from being outside and climbing. And
yeah, the performance is totally relative. It's just, it's totally subjective based on your own capabilities. So like Mike said, like I'm hoping to send this 12B today that I've like done a couple times that I'd like to red point. And like for half the people at Pine Creek, they're like warming up on that. It's like, it's not a hard grade here in Pine Creek where everybody climbs 513. But like for me, this is more on the performance side of things where like I want to climb that because it's hard for me and it's at my limit for whatever reason right now. And that's tickling the performance side of the climbing where I get to try hard and work towards something and then hopefully accomplish it. So the grade doesn't matter. It's just the relative difficulty of being able to come up to a challenge and then know that you tried really hard and know that you gave it everything you had and succeeded or failed. So,
yeah, I mean, I've heard interviews with people who like climb, professional level bouldering and sport climbing, and they're climbing V17 or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I think, I've spent like 5 years adding 1 kilogram to my dead hang. And they're like, yeah, I think if I like can't climb like my hardest grade ever, I don't even know why I'll want to climb. But I think maybe for us, like both having started climbing like in our like 20s, like late 20s, like who cares like what grade you climb? Like that's not whatever made me climb in the first place. I'm never going to climb a route that's hard enough that anyone cares how hard it is. Like I'm just climbing because I love it. So, and I climb, I challenge myself because I love challenging myself.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree with you guys' mentality, but I think the example of the limit boulder or sport climber that has lived in this performance box their entire life and built their ego and identity around it really has a cliff that they're going to have to deal with at some point in their life. And so I think this perspective that we're talking about is extremely important to share.
Yeah.
Let's be real for a second. The current blueprint for a successful climbing podcast is simple. Interview the best climbers in the world. Big names mean big followings, lots of SEO power, and a built-in audience that helps boost every episode. But this show has never been about that. From the beginning, I have made it my mission to bring you stories from the climbing majority. The climbers who don't live in the limelight. The ones who avoid interviews, quietly put up routes, and give back in ways that are rarely recognized. And while that's what makes this show special, it also means we have an uphill battle when it comes to growth. And that is where you come in. If you're psyched about the show, if you've been inspired, entertained, or fired up about an episode, word of mouth is the single most important way you can help the show. Share an episode with a friend. Play one on a group road trip. Post about the show on social media. Jump onto Reddit threads and Mountain Project forums and share with people what you've been listening to. Be sure to tag the show, tag your favorite guests, and spread the word. And if you want to help even more, I'm currently sending posters to climbing gyms around the country. If you'd like to sport one in your climbing gym, be sure to reach out. Email me at theclimbingmajoritypodcast@gmail.com, and I will be sure to send you one. Let's band together and show the climbing community that the climbing majority has a voice. All right, let's circle back to the Goliath real quick and kind of bring this to a close. So real quick before I talk about like reflections and kind of the end process of it, just the closest call you guys had, or the most exposed terrain, the most heightened moment. It seemed like it was that giant slab down climb that you guys did.
No, that was like a dramatic picture to share, but that like
Okay.
wasn't that bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it then?
I would say it was the third day.
Day 3.
In the Palisades, there's a few towers that are super exposed and really bad rock.
Between between
Middle and Norman Clyde,
that was a big section.
and bivouac and balcony.
Yeah. As I was gonna say, like there's a spire called Daunt that is just like 500-foot spire of like stacked shit. Every single thing you
super
grab,
steep.
every single thing you grab is not attached. Every single hold you grab is not attached. And that was the day that I kind of had a breakdown at the end of the day, because it felt like most of the entire day we were in like super high consequence, fatal, no fall zones, but every hold you grabbed was not attached, and every foot you stood on would crumble as soon as you stepped off it, and there were no cracks. It was all face climbing, so there was no gear, even if we had gear to place, and we couldn't build rappel anchors because the rock was so bad, and like
and it was like any fall you would have just like tumbled straight off the mountain. Like it wasn't ledges, it wasn't third class, it was like fourth and fifth class the whole way.
Yeah.
And this is the one spot where in Vitaliy's AAJ write-up of the first ascent of the Goliath, he wrote like, oh, I wish I had a partner to rope up with. But then once we're there, like the rock is so bad, there's nowhere you could protect it anyway. So there's no point in roping it up.
Yeah.
Like,
and like on-site solo route finding in approach shoes with a 25-pound bag is like, you have to make the right decision with your route finding. It's very high consequence. So like you can't really climb up and down a lot of these sections because you feel like every hold you grab is falling away after you grab it. So even if you climb up, maybe you can't climb back down because there's literally not the same hold. So like it felt really serious. And yeah, man, that was a tough day. That was gnarly. That was just a big day in general, the amount of elevation gain that we were doing and down climbing and stuff, but the rock quality and kind of super sustained exposure. And yeah, that was really intense.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that was the day that I was like, oh, I think we actually could die up here. Like if we're not perfect, we will die up here.
and like a lot of the week, like we were on loose rock and it was whatever, we were kind of dealing and it was scary. But I remember thinking like, okay, like that was a cool ridge, or this was a nice little head wall crack or something. But that day, the only thing I remember thinking that we talked about it was like, nobody should do this. Like that was the only section where I'm like, this is like not cool. Like there's nothing redeeming about this other than the fact that it allows us to do the whole line, and it's like a piece that we need to do if we want to do the whole thing connected. Like if people want to go climb Norman Clyde and Middle Palisade and some of those peaks like Peak Baggin, or there's some cool ridges, go do it. But I'll just put it out there, like on this podcast, like don't traverse from basically
South Fork Pass.
the South Fork Pass to Norman Clyde.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucked. Don't do it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and a lot of the other sections that were scary and had bad rock and stuff. You know, if you fell, maybe you'd fall 30 feet and land on a ledge, or maybe you would. You know, it was low angle enough that like you'd cheese grater or something. This section was like, if a hold breaks, you're gonna fall like 1,000 feet. You're not gonna hit anything. You're just gonna. It's gonna take weeks to find your body because you're probably gonna pull an entire tower on top of you as you fall. And yeah, it just felt like every decision that we were making was permanent. Like you didn't have the ability to reverse a lot of options, and everything that you did had to be really perfect in order to make it through that. Yeah, that was a tough day. It was a tough day.
Wow. You had talked about the guy following you with the Russian roulette gun.
Yeah.
Senior Chaos.
Senior.
What percentage, like if you were to allocate a percentage value towards the amount that luck played into your survival during that objective, what would you say that percentage was?
I mean,
10. Is that crazy?
I don't want to like categorize like as if there's like luck and skill that are like two elements in the same category, because the kind of framework that I've processed this as is like it was 100% luck that like we didn't break anything, and basically we didn't have any accidents, and we spent 8 days climbing up there and everything went fine. And that was like the groundwork. Like, because we were lucky, we had the solid terrain and, you know, chose the right ways, like all day, every day, and nothing happened. And then with that being given, there's like a second layer that we did good route finding. We supported each other. We like performed well, and we used our skill and abilities and teamwork and everything to accomplish the goal. But it's almost like 100% luck and 100% skill, if that makes sense. Like, to me, they don't overlap at all. It's like, yeah, I can't say it's like 20% luck or whatever. Like,
Yeah, I don't want to.
because if anything had gotten unlucky, we wouldn't have even had the ability to exercise our skills. So if that makes sense to kind of frame it that way.
I don't know if luck is like the right word either. Like we did make all the right decisions in theory that let us complete it and make it home safely. But I just think, I don't know if luck's the right word, but there's always a chance that, I mean, maybe it's just like the standard alpine risk multiplier that you just experience from being up there, but it's that extrapolated to, 60 mountains now. So you're doing kind of an entire lifetime's worth of risk exposure all in this 1 week. So I would say as much as luck is a factor in any alpine climb, it was a factor here, but it was just at such a grander scale because of how many mountains we did and how many, we did 10,000 moves on granite. So like, as much of luck is a factor in any of these alpine climbs, it just happened to be 1,000 times greater just because of the prominence and magnitude of this. We're just exposed that many more times.
Yeah, the amount of time you spent in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
So wild. Vitaliy had said, it didn't feel like I had conquered Goliath. I had merely survived him. And you both...
Oh, I hadn't heard that. That's perfect. Yeah, there you go.
You both had described finishing, feeling lucky survivors rather than triumphant athletes. Talk to me about that kind of feeling a little bit. It seems like you both had a very similar experience coming out the other side. And this is kind of tangential to this whole element of risk and the chaos and the randomness that you guys survived.
Yeah, I shared that after we finished on Instagram, that post about I had envisioned this. I'm really big into imagery and I like to play through things in my head, especially something like this, hundreds of times before I actually do it. I think that helps me a lot with the actual like game time experience. So I had pictured completing this, and I had pictured failing off of this probably way more than I had pictured completing it, where I had envisioned what it would feel like to fail, or what it would feel like to quit, or what it would feel like if somebody got hurt. I had pictured that hundreds of times in my head, and I had also pictured completing it. And in my head, it was us running down into Piute Pass, and we've got all of our friends there, and everybody's cheering, and we're like, yeah, we've done it, we've like done the Goliath. It's this incredible experience where we're just full of pride and so stoked to have like completed the second ascent. And that wasn't the reality at all. We finally saw Piute Pass from the crest and dropped down, and we like weren't even talking. We were just kind of slogging toward the first trail we had seen in 9 days, and I just felt really void of any emotion at all. I wasn't happy. I wasn't proud. I was just like, I just felt like this empty carcass. I was just blank, where I was grateful. I was very grateful to be done. And I was grateful to be sure that I wasn't going to die that day. But I did. I feel like I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. I didn't feel a lot. I was just like, thank God, get us off this crest.
I just felt relieved that nothing horrible had happened.
Yeah.
Because there was definitely this feeling like every day that something horrible could happen.
Yeah.
And it didn't. So whenever we like saw the pass and walked down and hiked out, it was like, thank goodness, like
that was the prominent feeling. I
relief.
think was just relief. Yeah. Just like, okay, that's done.
And because there was this layers of like, it feels like luck. And then we also got to display our skill, but it kind of was like, dependent upon the fact that like no rock exploded, nothing horrible happened. We were talking like that last day a little bit, like, is this something that we're even going to be proud of? And just because like, it kind of felt like we had done something reckless in the moment. And now that it's been a couple weeks, I'm looking at it and I am proud that we like displayed our skill, even if it was in an environment that's objectively dangerous and maybe a little bit reckless. Like, regardless of the danger of the environment we chose to put ourselves in, like we still did like do something really difficult and come through it. But yeah, that's still something a little bit to like reconcile. It was like, was it worth it going into that environment in order to accomplish this difficult thing? When, yeah, there's also plenty of difficult challenges you accomplish that aren't so kind of reckless. I'll say it's kind of reckless to be up there for that long.
Yeah.
So.
You guys are kind of talking about this idea of dread, like a feeling of dread, like something that is bad is going to happen. It seems like Vitaliy had a very similar experience. He said something about like this voice that was telling him he was going to die if he continued to move forward. And that was actually the time that he bailed on his first attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, he listened to that voice. You guys had that voice and continued to push on. Did you guys have a contingency plan? Like, did you guys talk like, hey, if one person's like fucking over it, we have to bail, or like, what was that conversation like? And how do you guys balance that? Like, how are you balancing listening to this innate human fear and just understanding like, man, like this is fucked. I like could die here, but I'm going to continue to step forward, even though I have this innate biological feeling of telling me not to move forward. Like, how are you guys balancing all of that?
Yeah, we talked about it beforehand. If somebody bailed, the other was going to keep going.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We were both super stoked.
That was a little bit in the context of like, if something happened, if someone twisted their ankle or had a minor injury.
Yeah. I think
if Tanner wanted to bail, I would have been less likely to go on by myself than if he like rolled his ankle. It would have been maybe a little bit more difficult, but I don't know. I think we would have just talked about it.
I don't think just quitting was ever
honestly.
We weren't just gonna quit for no reason. Yeah.
I mean, when Vitaliy did it, he fell and got injured.
Yeah,
he did.
So like when we went into it, it had like 100% injury rate.
Yeah.
So like the fact if something like that happened, it was like definitely a possibility, and that's why we were like, well, we were both really psyched on that, and we know it's possible to do this mission solo. So like if something like that happens, like maybe the other person is probably gonna have to assess, but like probably would have done it solo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we also said that if somebody's quitting because they think it's too dangerous or something like that, if we're just quitting because like we're not comfortable with it, we're probably both going to be quitting at that point.
We have pretty similar risk tolerances.
Yeah.
That's why we're good partners for this type of thing. So
if one of us is actually like actively trying to bail on it, it's probably so fucked that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So that's something we talked about. Like, I was never worried about Mike quitting. We're not just going to quit. We don't quit. anything like this just because it's hard. So if it was objectively too dangerous, that probably would have been a team decision where we said neither of us need to be up here. Because like Mike said, we have very similar risk tolerances, and it's very, very unlikely that one of us would have just been like, I don't want to do this.
I think if, like, for example, every day was as like bad as the third day, there's a possibility we would have said, this is dumb, let's not do this.
After Bishop Pass, I think that would. I think we would have bowed out there.
But that day was particularly bad, and the other days were all bad and loose and scary, but it wasn't like
as sustained
all day. Like, we climbed like 8 hours most day, and like I would say we spent like 2 or 3 hours like kind of scared for our lives. And that day we spent like 8 hours scared for our lives. And I think if we had more days like that, we might have like had that discussion. But the way most of the train was, it was like just under the threshold of being like, no, this is like a reasonable challenge.
Yeah. And I shared this too. And this is like, I'm kind of wrestling with this idea a little bit since we completed it. And this is kind of like a half formed thought. So I don't want to like, I'm not married to this opinion, but I think that there is a chance that I would be more proud if I had bowed out at Bishop Pass. I think that there's a chance that if I had, knowing what was on the back half, because we still had some very scary, super engaging, fatal, terrain to cover. I think that there's a chance that I would have been more proud if I had the humility at Bishop Pass to say, we had the experience we came for. We've accomplished something really big by doing the full Monty. I don't need to keep putting myself in this risk, because I almost regretted, and I still almost, it's kind of hard to explain. I don't regret finishing it, but part of me does regret continuing so far past my risk tolerance, because we did. I think looking back, I was significantly beyond what I would deem acceptable risk almost every single day. And I'm almost ashamed of that in a way, that I didn't have the humility to step back and say, this is too dangerous. I'm not willing to do this. But we chose to go anyway. We performed well. We had luck on our side, and we were successful. So it's easy to say that on the backside after a success. I know that if I had bailed, a big part of me would still be wanting to go back and doing it again and completing it or something like that. But it's something weird I've been wrestling with, the idea that maybe I should have said, I don't think we should be here at Bishop Pass, because it felt like I drew a line in the sand, as everybody does, for what they're willing to expose themselves to in terms of risk. And I blew past that significantly. And that's how people die in the mountains. And I don't know. That's kind of an unformed idea that I'm kind of working through right now. And
no, it makes sense for sure.
Where be at.
And that was at the halfway point, right, where you said you could have bailed.
Yeah, at Bishop Pass, yeah. And that was our second hardest day by a huge margin. Was the day that we stepped off from Bishop Pass. It was really, really hard to go from the safety of Bishop Pass and seeing Hannah and our friends, and we had a rest day because we put enough food left to cash to take a 0 day there, and leaving that security and safety and going and being right back into it again was really challenging. And it had us both thinking, what are we doing here? Like, we have a safe out now. The van is 4 miles away. We can just walk down this trail, be at the car in an hour, be eating Copper Top for dinner tonight, laying in our beds. And instead we're out here in a terrain where we could die at any moment, and that was a really tough mental game to kind of work through on, is it worth going still? And I think the way that both of us are in the mountains, and we're just inclined to just keep going and keep trying and going until you can't. And we didn't have an objective reason to stop in the moment. So we just kept going a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. But looking back, that resulted in me being a mile past my risk tolerance, kind of before I realized it. And it's not something I'm proud of. I don't know. Yeah, I'm still working through my relationship with that whole concept of continuing to push through. And it's kind of a novel experience I haven't really gone through before.
this is one of the points I wanted to talk about. We're talking about the halfway point. This is like extremely contrary to the style that Vitaliy had chosen in the first place. You guys chose to split this up in half, right? And it almost seemed like that decision was a curse and a blessing. It seemed like it was a blessing because you guys got to reset, you had a cache, you got to see your people. But then, just as Tanner was alluding to just previously, it almost opened up this chance of reflection of like, oh, we could just easily tap out and bow out here, and you have a chance to reflect on how much risk you've put yourself in. And so it had this like yang, or this negative side to this decision to split it up. So, Tanner, you talked about kind of how it had affected you. Like, Mike, did you have a similar experience halfway?
Well, I'll say like splitting up with the cache was a great idea because we carried half the weight of the food. What was not such a great idea was taking the 0 day there, because we had built so much momentum doing this for 5 days to get there that we were climbing well and moving well and just kind of like chugging along. And then spending that day there, we just lost all of our momentum.
And we lost all the callus, like the mental callus that we had built up to the risk and to the suffering, because that is like, I mean, it's a real thing that really happens, like you kind of recalibrate your risk meter as you're going, and you experience higher risk sections. So then a section that follows that maybe would have been scary isn't as scary now because you just did something way scarier. And we completely reset that from scratch after the rest day.
So we had built this routine of waking up in the morning, soloing a bunch of choss, finding a camp, going to bed, waking up and repeating it. And then we ended that routine by waking up in the morning at Bishop Pass, laying out by the lake, hanging out with our friends, chilling all day, going back to bed in the same place, not having to wonder where we were going to camp, not having to wonder, what if we should climb this choss or that choss. And then the next day we woke up, we hiked out of Bishop Pass, we got to the first chossy ridge section, and we were like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Whereas before, there was no question of why. Before that day off, like days 3, 4, 5, like after we were in it for a few days, we were kind of like, had just accepted. This is what we're doing. This is the nature of this challenge that we've chosen to take on. And we could just deal with it. But then after taking that day off, we were out of the challenge, it felt like. And then all of a sudden we were back in it, and we're like, well, what's the point of this? It's just, yeah.
Yeah, that was the closest that I was to bailing or proposing that we might not need to be doing this.
So that day 7, because day 6 was our 0 day. So day 7, we got to Mount Thompson, which was one peak before we were going to bivvy. And it has like a plateau on the summit. And we got up there and we looked at the next ridge, which was more exposed, steep choss. And we just decided to camp there. We said, you know what, like, let's just stop here. And then, yeah, we set up our tent. We got inside the tent, and we actually like recorded like a kind of a debrief that night. I think Tanner posted some of that on one of his Instagram stories.
No, we recorded the next morning.
Was it the next morning?
Because we were so.
Oh, that's that night. I was like, hey, this is like a big point. You want to like do a debrief?
Very raw like moment.
And Tanner was like, I think we should do that in the morning.
Yeah, I just couldn't even talk. I really struggled that evening. I was in a pretty bad place mentally. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to take the risk. I didn't want to be scared for my life anymore. I was just like, what the fuck are we doing, man? Why are we up here? Why are we doing this? Like, this doesn't seem worth it anymore to me. And yeah, that was a really tough day.
And something we talked through then was about like motivation.
Yeah.
And I think we had a big shift there because I've kind of like thought about this a bit, and we talked about this. We had like, there's like 2 motivations to do something like this. And one is to like have the experience of being in the challenge, which involves, in this case, being in the mountains, finding your way to these beautiful summits, sustaining yourself for day after day, like, climbing the ridges, navigating, like doing the climb, like having the experience of doing the climb is like a motivation to do this. And then another motivation is to set a big goal and achieve the goal. So when we first set out, we had like two things driving us. One was to like do this difficult thing and be in the mountains, and the other was to accomplish a goal that we set for ourselves. And after 5 days of climbing on the Goliath and getting to Bishop Pass, we had spent 5 days experiencing the climb. And then we took that 0 day where we just experienced hanging out by the lake with our friends. And then the next day we went back to the climb. And with 5 days behind us of experiencing the climb, I think we lost our motivation to experience it. We said, okay, we've been there. We've had the experience. Now, why are we still doing this? Well, it's only because we set this goal and we're motivated to accomplish our goal. So kind of accepting that. And then we talked about it that day and woke up the next day. And for me, at least, I had like this big internal shift of like acknowledging that and accepting it. Like, okay, now I'm doing this because I'm accomplishing a goal, and I'm still happy to be in the mountains. I'm still happy to be climbing. I'm still happy to be challenged, but I've experienced enough that I don't need more. Like if I do 5 days or 8 days of soloing Chauce, like I'm kind of satisfied with soloing Chauce, but accomplishing a goal that you've set for yourself becomes like the main factor to continue. And I think the fact that we accepted that and discussed it and put it on the table, like made a big transition. Cause then the next day, our second day of moving after we left the pass, we were kind of like back in it and saying, okay, now we have like reason to go on. And also that day we got to the Evolution range, which is a lot more trafficked, and it was just, everything was kind of moving well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
No,
it's
that's a
interesting.
powerful switch for sure.
Our two lowest days, day 3 and day 7, were followed by our two best days on the entire route, which was day 4 and day 8. And I think that that's one of our strengths, is we're really good at the mental, I guess, reframing, where we each at the end of each low day, we had a discussion about we can't do that again. We cannot have another day like that because we're going to implode. So we made this really intentional shift to like have fun on the next days and to enjoy what we're doing. And we would play music on our phones, and we were singing, and we were just having fun. We were like playing in the mountains, and it was really important to intentionally make that switch because we were coming off of such bad days that we had to really do like a really intentional push to like, we have to turn this around or we're going to fail here. And I think that kind of speaks to our partnership in terms of how we are able to stay positive in the face of this adversity or risk or suffering or whatever. And that's one of our biggest strengths, which is cool to see it play out twice in the Goliath like that.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. I really like that change of perspective. And it's so interesting that it's like related to the two sections of the climb too. It's like this halfway point. There's just so much dichotomy there. It's really interesting.
well, it's again the dichotomy of like the process versus the outcome.
Yeah, 100%.
And yeah, we day 7, I think, because of that 0 day, we were like, oh, we accomplished something, and now we're going to accomplish something bigger. It was all about the accomplishment, about the outcome.
Yeah.
And we totally lost touch with the process.
Yep.
And then day 7, we suffered because of that. And then day 8, we were back to like, okay, we're climbing mountains. We enjoy climbing mountains. Let's like focus on that.
The only way to get through it is to have these swings from one way to the other, so you have something different to focus on. You're not overwhelmed each day.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And day 8 was the day that I cried. Like we were walking up this hill and our heart rate was up, and I forgot I was listening to some music or something, and I just like all of a sudden was overcome with this. I actually started to think about the Drew, and I thought about the fact that like we shouldn't have even made it home from Europe, and now here we are doing this like incredible thing. And it was after we were into the Evolution region, and it was like a little bit feeling like we were gonna do it for sure. And like something just happened, and we were tired, and I just like started to cry, which I like. It's not like I don't know, I don't like ever cry, and I just had this like crazy feeling. Tara was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just really happy." I was like tears of joy and exhaustion and adrenal fatigue and everything. Yeah, it was pretty powerful moments along the way.
Yeah, some really, really raw, vulnerable moments up there. Just, I mean, that long in that state of exposure and stuff just strips you down to your most raw, you know. It's really hard to replicate that scenario without putting in days and days of grinding you down to nothing. and just stripping you bare of everything that you all these talismans that you have in your life to kind of guard against this vulnerability. You just have nothing after that many days, and everything is on the surface, and it's a really special place to experience. It's a unique mental opportunity to be able to go there, and it's really special. It was pretty cool.
I think those those moments are extremely transformative. Like, how would you guys consider each of you different in a way, like different humans, different climbers, different partners? How have you changed after this objective?
I think I'm gonna have my relationship with risk is adjusting. Right now I'm intentionally trying to take a big step back from these high risk activities and objectives. We've had a couple close calls this year, some closer than others, and I feel like I'm good on that right now. I don't need to inject this risk into my life in an artificial way to feel accomplished or to feel that vulnerable state of raw, transparency in my own life right now. And I think that would be the biggest way. It's not like a deep answer, but I think that I'm just maybe I've been to the edge now. I've been on the edge looking over more than once this year, and I just want to take a step back and enjoy my time with my wife and with Mike and with friends and stuff, and do it in a way that I'm not scared for my life all the time. And I think I've been kind of prone to these high risk objectives for whatever reason. I think there's some sort of me that is pursuing those for whatever reason. I think probably because of that experience that you can only get from these really exposed objectives. And I just feel like I'm good. I'm good right now. I'd like to stay around for a while and do this for the rest of my life. And I don't think that the pace that we're going right now, or specifically the objectives that we're choosing, is going to be good for longevity. So, yeah.
Have you reflected on why you want to live?
Yeah, I mean, I want to live for, I want to live for Han. I want to have our kids and show them all this stuff. And I want to take my kids to the valley and show them all the walls that we've climbed, and, teach them how to climb. And I want to see the world with Han. And I just have a lot of stuff I want to do. And I want to be fair to the people that I love and the people that love me, and not put them through these, kind of torturous little streaks of like hot, I feel like there's been a couple times where I'm like extendedly for like a week or two at a time in these kind of high consequence zones where Hannah's told me that she's like, she gets in these states where she's like waiting for a phone call in the middle of the night or something. And it's, I don't want to put people through that, and I don't want to be in that right now either. So,
yeah, no, it's cool, man. I think it's with how many close calls you've had, I feel like it's the main logical way to go about it. And I think, we only get a certain number of chances like that in our lives. And it's smart to llisten. So it's cool to hear.
Micromorts. The micromorts.
Yeah, exactly.
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, it's a little bit similar. Like I feel like for example, one thing I noticed is last week we were up in Tuolumne, and usually like if I'm somewhere like that and it's like the afternoon and I'm restless and I want some exercise, I'll like go do some easy soloing or something. And then there was one day where I was like in the van and I kind of want some exercise, and I went for a run, and I was like, this just sounds really fun. I'm like, I could go like a solo one of the domes, and I was like, that just doesn't sound fun at all. I'd rather like just go for a jog or a hike or something. Like it's just that risk. Like it just doesn't feel the same. It just doesn't feel as casual to me. I did, and that doesn't mean that you guys won't see me like on the manure pile this fall or something. But I'm just saying it's like not as appealing as it normally is, and I'm like, oh, there's other things I can do. Like I enjoy jogging. I enjoy, I don't know, making music with friends. Like I enjoy these other things. It doesn't always have to be something that's like so intense. So actually, especially what happened in Chamonix, and then just in general, just being in this environment so much this year, I feel like really driven to find joy in other ways. Like that day we got down from the Drew, that night, so we spent the night in the hut. We got down that day, and I was like back at my friend's house, and we just like had a beer and with Isaac, and I was like playing guitar. We were making music, and I just felt so much joy for doing something in a safe environment. Like we were in our friend's house, like with the doors closed, just like warm and clean and safe. And there was like no way I could have died in that moment, like from some random hazard. And I was like filled with joy from like music and friends. And I was like, oh, like maybe I need to like find more of this joy and a little bit less of the joy where like a random like falling block could kill you. So
Yeah, it's cliched, but I just think it's made us really appreciate the safe, like little things in life a lot. I actually, Mike just talked about soloing a dome. I walked up to Fairview Dome last week with the intention on soloing the regular route, which is something I've wanted to do for a while. And I climbed the first pitch, and there was parties above me, and I just decided like I don't want to take this risk. And I had already decided I was going to solo it, which is like I try to make that decision before I get started. Like, are you going to do this or not? And then you decide to do it, and then you just turn off the fear and you just go. And I had already decided I was going to do it, but I just got one pitch up, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to. I felt that risk again that I had felt on the Goliath, where all your decisions are relatively permanent, and you need to do everything perfectly. And I just didn't want to be exposed to that risk. And weeks prior, I would have just eaten that thought and just kept going, because that's what I would typically do. But I just don't want to put myself in a situation where my wife is afraid for my life and she's concerned about me, and I don't want to be in that situation where I'm feeling that imminent certainty of all my decisions being consequential. And so I down climbed and walked out, and I didn't climb it. And that was definitely a result of the Goliath and the risk that we experienced there. So yeah, I think that we've both got our fill on that risk multiplier for a good while right now. And we're just going to enjoy the little things, because it's nice. There's a lot of little things to enjoy, and you don't have to inject that multiplier into your days to feel like this vibrant, sensation anymore, because we've been there and we've done that, and we don't need any more.
I mean, before this summer, we were talking about like doing a big trip to Patagonia this year and stuff. And like, we didn't even talk about it that much, but we like just know that we're not doing it. Like I think we like this spring, we're like, okay, maybe we should get a house in the, in Chalten or these things. And then like, that's for sure out of the question.
I think the only thing we said about that was like in passing, we're like, hey, we're not going to Patagonia anymore, right?
You're like, oh yeah, obviously.
And like that was it. We both just knew like, we're not going to go do that, because we want to take a step away from that scene for a bit.
I got a bunch of new sport climbing quick draws, and like just like no, I've like never had like good sport climbing draws for all the years I've climbed, because I just don't sport climb that much. But I was like, okay, it's time. I like got them. Like, we're here now at the crag, like just climbing pitches where you can clip a bolt every 6 feet and just enjoy rock climbing. And
kind of getting back to basics a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Now, you guys are still, I would say, relatively fresh off the Goliath, fresh off of these reflections.
Yeah.
If you're being honest, how long do you think that this new framework is going to last?
I mean, we already have a trip to the High Sierra next week planned. Or no, in 2 weeks we're going to do something, or maybe or in a few weeks.
But not high.
But that's
stuff.
It. Just
we're going.
Call it alpine sport climbing, like modern routes with bolted anchors and stuff. Like I'm still a little bit psyched on that. And then like this fall in the valley, like I'm thinking about like we're talking about climbing the Fifi Buttress or like free climbing out El Cap or stuff, where it's like you're not like running it out. You can just kind of like
we're not speed
sit at bolted belays and belay and place a bunch of gear and just like have fun and have adventures, but a different type where there's just so much less objective hazard, where if something goes wrong, it's probably because you made a big mistake, and if you're vigilant, then mistakes become less likely. And
Nice. What do you think people miss when asking you about the Goliath?
I don't know. It's hard to describe it. I got a guy, I was sharing some stuff the other day, and I got a message from this guy who kind of bluntly asked, like, we've obviously talked a lot about the objective risk that we experienced and how surprised we were at how like really intense it was. And this guy just bluntly said like, hey, Vitaliy was pretty clear about how dangerous this was. Why were you guys so surprised at how dangerous it was? And it's hard to understand the scale of it until you're really in it, and it's hard to describe, and it almost feels fruitless to even try to describe the experience up there because the sheer magnitude is nearly impossible to digest unless you've been up there and done a lot of these big sections and you understand how grand this whole project is. So I don't think any questions are being missed much, and I don't really know how we could even begin to really describe the experience. We're making the film, I think, and Josh is an incredible filmmaker, and I think he's going to do a really good job at telling the story. We got some cool footage across the entire traverse and leading up to it, but it's kind of hard to describe it anyway. So I can't really think of any questions that we would answer beyond what we've already tried to do.
Well, it's so different hearing about something and seeing something and then like doing it and feeling it. It's like if someone like reads about how awesome Yosemite is and watches Free Solo, but when you get to the valley for the first time and you get out of your car and you look up at El Cap, you feel it and you're like, whoa, you know, or something like that. It's like you can hear a story or do this, but whenever you're actually there in person, whenever you walk to the rim of the Grand Canyon or stand at the base of El Cap and you just like feel this incredible thing, like it's going to be different than someone telling you about it. So
that makes sense. I was reading into this objective. There's something bigger, the full Sierra Crest.
I mean, that's a pipe dream that's never been even attempted.
Yeah. Do you think that like having done the Goliath, like how much more of a scale is the full Sierra Crest? Is it like twice the objective?
It's like 5 times.
Yeah,
five times. Holy
I mean, it's
shit.
basically from Whitney to Yosemite or something, right?
It starts like Kernville or something. It's basically like equivalent of doing the John Muir Trail, but like on the peaks. Yeah.
But that's like, I mean, Vitaly's talked about that, you know, a couple times. He's been kind of open about that being like maybe the most grand thing ever in the world. But like you would need,
and there's different ways to do it. Like, actually, it goes from like Tahoe to like south of Whitney. It's you could do like a Sierra Crest Traverse where you're doing like a backpacking trip and bagging peaks along the way. But doing like a true like ridge traverse, like the Goliath for that far,
you would need such an industrial support team. You would have to
have weather window, and
you'd have to have 50 caches dropped on the ridge. You obviously couldn't carry your stuff. It would be
could be like a lifetime goal to do it in sections.
That would take like,
but doing it in a push,
it would take like 3 months probably.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, it's all you're naming is the Sierra Crest because it's just that is the continuous ridge line. So it's like, I don't even know how that would be possible, but I'm sure.
I mean, if the Goliath is possible, then I think that's possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
But it would be hard to. That would be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, for anybody listening that's inspired by your story, inspired and genuinely considering attempting the Goliath Traverse in their life, what advice do you have for them?
Pick something else.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, after having done it, and this was such a psychotic obsession of mine for 4 years, I remember watching Vitaliy do it in real time and just being so incredibly captivated by this achievement. And I knew when it got done that I have to do this. I have to do this. This is the biggest thing in the Sierra. This is the ultimate High Sierra tour. There is no bigger test to prove that you're a Sierra hard man than this. And I knew that I had to do this for the years leading up to it. And now having done it, like I said, a part of me regrets finishing it. A part of me regrets doing this. I almost feel shame that I exposed myself to that much risk. So I understand that there are other people out there that are going to be drawn to the same thing because it's the biggest and because it's the pinnacle of High Sierra climbing and you know, alpine traverses in the country right now. But I just think the risk on this was so disproportionately high compared to anything I've done by a huge margin. And there's better stuff out there. There's safer stuff out there. And I don't think that a rope or a rack would help you in most of the dangerous sections because the rock is so bad and it's face climbing, and
it would just make it way more dangerous because you'd be pulling rope off on your partner and
I would just be
super slow, and
I would be really intimately aware with the reality that you could die up there. It's not a long shot at all. I said in the thing I shared that I wonder if we were the option instead of the expectation.
Yeah, it feels
Because-
surprising that 3 out of 3 people have survived it.
Yeah. So I don't think that's actually another thing I've been kind of wrestling about is how do we share this in a way that's not going to inspire some 18-year-old kid to go do this next? Because I think statistically, the odds are very much against you. And the more that this gets done, if it gets done again, somebody's going to die on it. There's no way that's not going to happen.
I'm just never going to encourage someone to go soloing, and I'm certainly not going to encourage them to go soloing on bad rock.
Yeah. I would say if you're seriously considering doing this, go check out that section. Go to South Fork Pass and mosey north and see how you feel about it, and understand that that's going to be every single day somewhere on the Traverse. I just bluntly, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not a good testing ground unless you're okay with, like, it's like you either win the gold medal or you die. There's not like a middle ground there. You have to be perfect or you die. And I think this is unique in that way. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend the experience because I'm not particularly proud of it. I'm proud of our performance and I'm proud that we were successful, but I'm not particularly proud of the actual Goliath itself because, like I said, I felt like I pushed so far. I have a very high risk tolerance in general. I understand that about myself, and I was so far past my own risk tolerance that I'm wondering how I even wound up there without some sort of alarm bells going off saying, like, you need to stop. So yeah, I feel like we almost got boiled alive on it, where we just kept incrementally exposing more and more and more risk until you look back and you said, how did we get here? This is really dangerous.
Yeah.
So
Nice, guys. I appreciate your time. That's all I got.
Yeah.
I feel like I missed anything?
No, thanks for the chat. So,
Yeah. But yeah, no, I appreciate you guys. I know you guys are busy. Logistics and stuff are hard. So I really appreciate you carving out some time to sit down and chat with me. It means a lot.
yeah, thanks for having us on. We love chatting.